He thought he was in control. How wrong he was.
Come to the dark side driving. It's the dark side driving. Come to the dark side driving. It's the dark side driving movie club.
From the deepest corner of the darkest universe, two brave hosts battle through nameless hordes of ghoulish monsters most foul, all to bring you the eternal glory of the Dark Side Drive-In.
It's the dark side driving. It's the dark side driving. Come to the dark side driving. It's the dark side driving movie club. It's the dark side driving. Come to the dark side driving. It's the dark side driving. It's the dark side driving movie club.
Hey, what's up? It's Shane with Dynamis Media, and I'm joined here with Stefan.
Hello.
And you are tuning into the Dark Side Drive-In, which is our horror-themed podcast where we cover movies from the 80s, sometimes 70s, and sometimes 90s. But hey, guess what? This one is all 80s, baby.
All 80s all day.
Joe Piscopo from the 80s, baby.
For better or worse. Joe Piscopo.
Yeah, all those one-liners.
Yeah. Quips. Witticisms. 1988's Dead Heat.
So good. And folks, we are recording together.
Live, in person.
Perhaps.
Same room.
Perhaps maybe right after the first one.
Wow, way to just like tear the veil down.
I'm just gonna part the towel.
What's the thing?
Pierce the veil.
You went in. Is that what it is? Like the thing that you do whenever like
cry.
No, what was that? Allegory of the cave. You just straight up like turned them around.
Yeah.
You showed them the entrance to the cave.
You let them out.
Yeah. Way to go.
Want to go back?
Because turns out we left them there because they sucked.
I feel like any prisoner. I get it. I feel like anyone that's been locked up would be like, get me the fuck out of here. I get maybe they would have some sort of PTSD about being in a weird confined space for a while, but I'm sure they could make that on their own terms, like in their own home, not go back to said prison, but whatever. Play.
How are they going to pay rent, Shane? Privileged much?
Yeah, really. Recidivism. That was a good take on current events.
So what do we do here again?
Yeah, take that, Play-Doh.
Take that Play-Doh in your allegory in the cave and stick it.
I pay taxes. Where the fuck are you?
You're too busy being dead. Must be nice.
Yeah.
You and Socrates.
Yeah, damn it. I was just going to make a Socrates joke.
You snooze, you lose.
Yeah. Anywho, so by now you probably guessed it. This is our moral philosophy podcast where we discuss the application of Socrates and Plato to 80s horror movies. So.
But this time we've moved on to 20th century continental philosophy. We'll be discussing Emmanuel Levinas.
Oh, no.
And the ethical philosophy that he represents. So tell me, how did you feel about totality and infinity?
Oh, my God.
One person who listens to us might get that that's actually a philosopher and that's actually a book he wrote.
Oh, my God.
But no one else will. And he's French. So.
Okay, so reason you're all here, we break into the creepy questionnaire.
Mwah.
So this is our game show where we go over trivia. I'm telling you, Stefan's on a streak. He's really killing it.
Usually the only streak I'm on is the one in my underpants. Am I right?
Whoa. So last time we did a movie quote, which we agreed to never do again, but it was kind of a softball. And it was that we're coming to get you, they're coming to get you, Barbara. Which we all know.
Generated probably the most social media interaction we've ever had.
That and the Twister meme.
Hey man, people love Twister.
I can't believe I heard we're getting a new one.
It's called Twisters. And it has Glenn Powell in it.
Ooh.
That dude's in everything nowadays, but he's also charming as hell, so I'm fine with it. Did you ever watch that show, Scream Queens?
Yes.
He was Chad Radwell in that.
He was.
Yeah.
Nice.
It was a good show. I don't know.
So I think everyone got the one last time. So this time I don't think we're gonna stump you.
We're gonna make it even more esoteric and weird.
Yeah, we are.
Twisted.
So are you ready?
I'm the readiest I've ever been.
All right. And this is trivia.
It is.
Which horror author's work is loosely adapted in From Beyond, Reanimator, and The Resurrected?
H.P. Lovecraft. These are all Stuart Gordon, or at least two of those are Stuart Gordon. From Beyond and Reanimator both have Jeffrey Combs and Barbara Crampton in them. Those are both Stuart Gordon ones. So yeah, it's definitely H.P. Lovecraft. Final answer.
Okay, well, thank you for playing. And for folks at home, tune into our socials and we will post the question and allow you to take your stab at it and see if you can get the correct answer.
See if you think you can out-stump the stumpster. Hold on, let me try that again. See if you can outwit the witmaster.
Nice.
But yeah, no, I know these movies.
Yeah. So, folks, I was going to play a terrible trick on our esteemed colleague here, where I was going to ask him the question, who starred as a former UN field agent, Jerry Lane, in the 2013 movie World War Z? And I wish we were a video podcast because I
know absolutely who it is.
Not mad at all.
I would have left.
I know.
I would have left this room.
That was good. Yeah.
I would have left this plane of existence. We can't talk about how much I hate World War Z every single episode. It's too much. People will get sick of it.
Okay, that's
fair. But I don't get sick of it because I'm an angry person full of rage and fury.
Yeah, I'm just glad his kids got to see it. You know what I mean?
You bastard! You know that's why I hate it so much. Oh God.
Okay. Well, I think this is a good time to expedite our transition to the cast and crew. What do you think?
Yeah, is that it for the game? Oh yeah, I answered the question.
Yeah.
And guess what, everyone? I think I was right.
Good job.
And also another one that Stuart Gordon did was Castle Freak, which is loosely based off of the H.P. Lovecraft story, The Outsider.
Ooh.
Super interesting story. I didn't get it when I first read it. I had to read it again.
I love soda pop in that book.
Oh, you're talking about the novel, The Outsider. The Outsiders. Isn't it The Outsiders?
It is.
There's many of them.
Yeah.
No, this one's only one outsider.
Okay.
He's actually come from inside. Kind of below. If you read it, you'll find out.
So,
or if you watch Castle Freak, you'll kind of find out.
So, like, The Outsider, does that have anything to do with Stephen King's Outsider?
No.
Okay.
Much grosser version of it because it's Stephen King. He's a gross dude.
He's a gross dude.
What a book. Have you read that?
With tons of tude. I did, and I also watched the adaptation. They
the
did.
one with Jason Bateman.
It was so good.
Super good.
Yeah, that was probably one of the best TV adaptations of his work.
After the first season, at least, of Under the Dome, which ruled. I heard it went off the rails, but I stopped watching it, so I didn't follow it.
I feel
through.
like that's a pretty cool. Yeah, that scene where the police are on both sides. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that was pretty wild.
Yeah.
That
How
was,
that one dude has to try to like stop them from like running into the. Oh, what a moment!
I know.
But yeah, it's an interesting book. Someone at work brought it up the other day. Like, you know, if anyone had ever heard of it, it's like, yeah, I read the book and I watched the first season of the show. It was great.
Yeah, my mom loves that book. I remember her reading it. She was like, she finished it. She's like, this is probably like one of my favorite ones he's done so far.
Well, it's really cool
Recently.
because like his more recent books had tended to be like less indulgent and shorter. And he focused more on like novellas and short stories, which is fine. He's excellent at that craft. But the fact that he churned out something like Under the Dome, which is long. That is a big book. That's like a throwback to like The Stand, to It, to like these older books. But he still I think he kept it going. The ending, he fumbles the ending a lot. I'm sorry. I love the guy. Fumbles the ending a lot. But like up until then, he kept that momentum going. He kept you interested. Really good book.
You know, I've always like when I read his stuff or watch his stuff, I always get the feeling that he like doesn't want the story to end. And not even like he can't write an ending, but like literally I think internally he's like, I want this to keep going. Like he wants to expand it more and he knows he has to stop it. Like, right? Like, which I find that interesting. So
so this is not what our podcast is for, but I'm going to say my theory and then we can move on.
Yep.
So my theory is that a lot of people don't like how the Dark Tower series ended. But I think that when you consider what you had just said about how he's like avoiding ending his stories.
Yeah.
And then you consider something like the Dark Tower, where he seems like he's careening towards a conclusion that we're not ready for. But if you think about it, that ending stretches out like 2 books.
Yeah.
Before it finally gets to the end. And then we see, I don't want to spoil it for anyone who's reading the Dark Tower, but the ending is not definitive, but it is an ending. So I think that that's probably the closest you can get to reconciling these ideas of how Stephen King ends things. I think that's why it's both the most successful and the most frustrating. Because I agree with you. He doesn't want it to end.
Yeah.
But I think beyond that, he doesn't think anything ends.
Right.
So I think that's his point. So I was really upset when I first finished the Dark Tower series, but like going back to it and rereading it, I'm like, wait, I get it. It's a little highfalutin for my simple man tastes, but I did actually, I know what he's going for, or at least I think I know what he's going for. Who really knows?
Yeah. And like, cause even like his shorter stories, like The Girl Loved Tom Gordon, which I can't stand. I hate that book, but, even that had a weird, like, I guess, you know, they kind of quickly were like, this isn't supernatural at the end of that. She just was delusional. But like, even then it felt like the end of the book was what, like 6 pages.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like it was just crazy. It was just like, okay, bye. It's like, thanks.
It's like, all right, well, have a nice day.
Yeah. I don't know. Sorry. I don't like The Girl Loved Tom Gordon, but I loved From a Buick 8. That was like one of my favorite books he did.
Really?
Yeah. I just love that. It's such a cool concept to have a car.
I feel like you've told me this before and I reacted similarly.
Yeah.
With like, really?
Yeah, that's a good one. But anywho,
All
Dead
right.
Heat.
Back to Joe Piscopo. All right. 1988. The world was different. I was born / almost a year old / a little over a year old throughout that year. I mean, I wasn't one the entire time, but I was one part of the time. I was alive the entire year. So, Dead Heat, director, which I think I mentioned last episode during our tribute to Roger Corman, directed by Mark Goldblatt. He was more renowned as an editor than as a director. He had a handful of directing credits, but primarily a film editor, and actually won a lot of accolades for that. Running through some of his things, his directorial credits are really just this. The 1989 Punisher, and then an episode of Erie, Indiana, which I won't turn my nose up at it. Love it.
Love that show.
But that's all. That's about it for him.
Such a good show.
Yes. So as an editor, way more credits. You had Piranha, Humanoids from the Deep, The Howling. So, already moving through either, Corman Productions or, Corman's acolytes, one of them being Joe Dante. Halloween 2, The Terminator, Rambo First Blood Part 2, Commando, Nightbreed, Predator 2, my second favorite Predator movie, Terminator 2, Judgment Day, Super Mario Bros., True Lies, Showgirls, Super Troopers.
The Super Trooper?
Vamp for a second.
So, as a fellow editor...
How do you do, fellow kids?
How do you do, fellow kids? Mad respect for his work on a lot of this stuff. You got True Lies, X-Men. He did a lot of stuff with the X-Men series. But...
Okay. I knew it was wrong. It was Starship Troopers.
Jesus.
I knew because the movie before it was Showgirls, which is Paul Verhoeven.
Yeah.
So is Starship Troopers. So dumb. I can't believe I put Super Troopers.
It's fine.
Littering
that movie's great. Yeah.
Littering and smoking the reefer, which would be actually an excuse if I actually smoked the reefer. Instead, I'm just careless. All right. It was Starship Troopers.
Yep.
Sorry, everybody. Hollow Man, Exorcist: The Beginning, Triple X State of the Union, which I guess is the second best Triple X movie. X-Men: The Last Stand, which I think you mentioned briefly while you're talking about his X-Men credits. The Wolfman remake with Benicio del Toro. Ooh, what a bad movie that was. That was so bad.
Which is weird. How did they fumble that bad? Because that guy could act it. Like, that guy is like... I love Benicio del Toro, but I don't know.
I think it was the subplot where where his dad was also a werewolf, but evil. Okay. Rise of the Planet of the Apes. There's a movie. Remember the part where Caesar said no to Draco Malfoy?
He did.
Mm-hmm. I think I brought that up in another episode.
It was the best Harry Potter movie.
Oh, I'll take your word for it since I've only seen one, and it was one with that snake.
It's in a couple, but...
The Basilisk?
Yeah.
I thought it was only in the third one.
No.
Then I don't know which one I saw. Chappie, and then the Death Wish remake, which, is not great, but it made money. Made him money. So there you go. Mark Goldblatt, our primary Wolfman and Rise of the Planet of the Apes stan. I'm just happy that came up because of like the new Planet of the Apes that came out, which I've heard is good, but I haven't had the chance to see it yet because I don't go to movie theaters. Next up is the writer, which is Terry Black. 5 episodes of Tales from the Crypt. So someone get this man a medal of some kind. 1 episode of Dark Justice. 1 episode of Tales from the Crypt Keeper. The animated version of Tales from the Crypt, if you remember that.
I vaguely, I'm looking at pictures of it now. It's jogging my memory now, but like before saying that, I wouldn't have been able to recall that.
Well, you're welcome.
I appreciate it.
He had 2 episodes of Silk Stockings, which was a show my mom liked when I was a kid. And then Red Steel and Red Steel 2, the Wii games.
Yeah.
Do you remember those?
Yeah.
They had probably the best like combat on using the Wiimotes that you had at the time. I don't think it ever got better than that.
It didn't, which isn't saying much.
Well, important thing is still good.
Yeah.
Next up is original music, which is Ernest Troost. Sweet Revenge, Munchies, Tremors, Carriers, One Man's Hero, a bunch of children's stuff. Did you see all those children's things?
It's a lot of children's things.
Some of it looked like Richard Scarry, but it wasn't, was it? Was it like Richard Scarry stuff? Do you remember Richard Scarry? It's like an artist. He had like those weird little, like the Busy World and everything. It's got to be real. Hold on, let me look it up. Now I'm starting to wonder if I've gone insane. No, dude, he's for real.
I understand what you're talking about. I'm not like...
Okay. Well, cannot confirm if it is that, but it's a ton of children's things. But very basic, like public domain children's things. So I didn't want to cite any of them, make it seem like it was an authoritative version of it.
Sure.
So that's all that Ernest Troost gets. And I don't think Ernest Troost did this theme song for this, the Dead Heat theme song.
I don't either. I don't know where that came from.
Well, if only we had the internet and could look it up. Dead Heat, written by John Huckert, Patrick Reed Johnson, and Phil Settle, and performed by Phil Settle.
So Patrick Reed Johnson was an assistant director on this film. That's interesting.
Oh, that was the dude who did all like those Dragonheart things. I remember I looked him up. I didn't know he was that important. Well, when in Rome. Anyway, moving on from Ernest Troost and whoever was responsible for that song, I chose physical effects or visual effects. In special effects, there were a lot of people.
There were a lot
credited on this. Probably because all the explosions. I find that whenever there's a lot of explosions, you have to hire like half an army. So for special effects, I went with Nick Benson, who did Night of the Demons, The Blob, Nightmare on Elm Street 4, The Dream Master, Howling 4, the original Nightmare, Society, my favorite Brian Yuzna movie. Jot that down. The Abyss, Tremors, Bride of the Reanimator. Bride of the Reanimator. Sorry, I misspelled it in my notes. I spelled it Bridge of the Reanimator. I was like, what does that even mean?
It's pretty wild.
Tales from the Dark Side, the movie.
Talks to his estranged father and like sets up some kind of like reconciliation.
Bridge of the Reanimator. It's like, we're going to come to terms with our trauma.
Yeah.
Then Road to Hell and Bullet Face. So there you go. That's Nick Benson. Sorry. Probably the only reason I chose him out of all of the people that were credited is because he was the top credited person and a lot of the other ones were assistants. And there were a couple others that seemed like they were credited as other special effects people, but they were also listed as workers for Steve Johnson's company. So I moved on to visual effects and I moved on to Steve Johnson, who some people may remember as being the guy who married Linnea Quigley after Night of the Demons. That was him. That was Steve Johnson. Special effects work he has: Ghost Story, Biohazard, Predator, Nightmare on Elm Street 4, The Dream Master, Howling 4, the original Nightmare, Leviathan, Howling 6, The Freaks, Necronomicon, Book of the Dead, The Stand, the Mick Garris one from 1994. Thank you very much. Lord of Illusions, The Dentist, Bad Moon, Species 2, my second favorite Species movie, and Wrongfully Accused with Leslie Nielsen. Oh, and a little movie called Spider-Man 2, where Tobey Maguire is a Spider-Man.
So I just want to take a moment to just recommend, if you've never seen Night of the Demons, please watch that director's cut version where they have like he's on it. There's a couple other people on it, and they go through like different shots in the movie,
the
like
commentary.
Yeah, the commentary. Sorry, yeah, and it's so good. Like I can't recommend it enough. It was so insightful. So yeah.
Well, sorry to interrupt, but that was only his special effects credits that I was going through. I was going to also do some makeup effects for Steve Johnson. We're going to do The Fog, Humanoids from the Deep, An American Werewolf in London, Videodrome, Long Live the New Flesh, am I right? Howling 2, Your Sister's a Werewolf. So we've seen him before. Big Trouble in Little China, Night of the Demons, A Nightmare on Elm Street 4, Howling 4. All of those ones he did makeup effects too. But had to bring up that Videodrome. You know, we may not care for what's his nuts anymore, right? What's his name? James Woods. He's kind of gone cuckoo bananas.
Has he? Okay.
Yeah. But you can't say he didn't help Brian Oblivion make the new flesh a thing in David Cronenberg's Videodrome. Someone out there appreciates my insights. Next up is Ernest Farino with visual effects. Some other Corman produced items like Galaxy of Terror. He had a Saturday the 14th, The Thing, Night Beast, The Lost Empire, Dreamscape, The Dungeon Master, Slaughterhouse Rock, Cyborg, The Abyss, Tales from the Dark Side, the movie. That's come up a few times now. Means we should do it sometime.
Yeah.
Screamers, Snow White, A Tale of Terror, Dune miniseries, like the sci-fi one. Children of Dune miniseries, also sci-fi one. The Adventures of Shark Boy and Lava Girl. And then one of his second to last credit was Balls of Fury.
So good.
Which I bring up because I know how much you love James Hong. So,
And Christopher Walken.
never heard of him. I'm just kidding. It's funny, everyone who doesn't know this is because Shane used to do a Christopher Walken impression when we were in college. He hasn't done it much since we've become adults. Maybe he forgot how.
Oh, is that my cue to...
It could have been. It doesn't have to be.
I don't think I can do it anymore.
You're not
dude.
a performing monkey. You can do what you want.
I don't know if I can do it anymore.
It's like, oh,
Christopher Walken.
people said, are you running? And I say, no, I'm walking. Is that how I can't get the cadence right?
People ask me, are you running? I said, no, I'm walking.
There you go.
Yeah.
That's not bad.
Yeah. So it's been about 15 years.
Well, it's never too late to try again. Dust yourself off and
shout
try
out
again.
to Lula, who we used to annoy the piss out of his now wife by just following her around campus. And we would just say that stuff to her. Oh, Liana, you're walking. And then we would just follow her around, and she wanted to kill us. It was good. So,
Well, hopefully she's not a listener because that might annoy her.
Whatever. It was just Mother's Day. She'll be all right.
Hey, that was yesterday.
Yeah.
Now it's time for the other 364 days a year where we don't give a shit.
Whoa.
I'm just kidding. Love you, Mom. Next up is cast. That's all the crew I did, by the way. If you wanted to cover anyone else.
No, I was
There's
good.
so many people on that crew, though.
I was going to hit Steve Johnson, but you nailed it.
Oh, I got him.
Got him in one.
Can't escape me. So now we're going to do our cast. First up is Roger Mortis, as played by the inimitable Treat Williams. So excited to see Treat Williams. Love him. R.I.P. Because unfortunately he passed away last year in a motorcycle collision.
That's terrible.
Did you hear about that?
Mm-mm.
Oh yeah, it was a really bad move or a bad situation because the person who was involved in the accident with him was like known to his family, like they knew each other.
Oh,
it was just like a unfortunate situation,
like a freak accident.
No, the driver was not being. So Treat Williams was on a motorcycle and he was driving and he was going on there and someone in the other lane like turned in front of him, like in their like car, resulted in a collision. It seems like that person was just careless because they were charged with a crime afterwards. Just alleged, all of the things.
Yeah, right.
Allegedly, I don't know. But based on the charges that came out of it, it was a not just like an accidental situation.
Yeah.
There was some like negligence out there. So unfortunate to see happen. Especially since I don't think Treat Williams was anywhere near done with his career. He was still starring in things up until his death. Speaking of him starring in things, though, let's go through them and get away from this sadness of him being dead. Because a lot of this movie is going to be predicated on making light of the fact that he's dead. So, because the character Roger Mortis, you might find this hard to believe, Shane. Roger Mortis is dead throughout this movie.
What?
Yeah. It's called wordplay, buddy.
Is his brother Rigger okay?
Oh my God. You said that when we were watching the movie. I didn't think you'd say it now when all the world can hear you. Now all of China knows we're here. But anyways, so Roger Mortis, Treat Williams. Treat Williams has been in Hair, a little movie you may have heard of called Star Wars Episode 5, The Empire Strikes Back. He was like an Echo base soldier during like the opening, I think. He was in Once Upon a Time in America, Night of the Sharks, an episode of Tales from the Crypt, an episode of Batman, or 2 episodes of Batman the Animated Series, Things to Do in Denver When You're Dead, Mulholland Falls, The Phantom, where he played Xander Drax, a villain that haunted my dreams. I've talked about how I was traumatized by the Billy Zane film The Phantom, right?
I think that's where I know him Like when I think
he's looking for those skulls.
Yeah, when I think of Treat Williams, I think of
Xander Drax.
Yeah,
hell yeah, you do. Yeah. Deep Rising though, which is another classic.
That was a very good one.
Yeah. A bunch of Substitute movies. The Substitute 2, School's Out. The Substitute 3, Winner Takes All. The Substitute, Failure is Not an Option. I guess they stopped numbering then. They just used a colon. Venomous, which is a kind of fun early 2000s snake movie. Miscongeniality 2, Armed and Fabulous. He was in Everwood for a really long time, which I think he was very well known for his time in Everwood. If you have ever heard of it.
Everwood? Oh, yeah.
Heartland, 127 Hours, Mask Maker. Attack of the 50-Foot Cheerleader, which is a more recent movie. I'm very curious about it. Age of the Dinosaurs, Chicago Fire, Blue Bloods, a bunch of recent police procedurals, like those kind of like long-running television shows. He's appeared for several episode-long arcs on a bunch of those until his unfortunate passing. So now moving on is Doug Bigelow, is played by Joe Piscopo, alleged comedian. He was in Johnny Dangerously, Wise Guys, Star Trek, the Next Generation. I almost said the animated series. Star Trek, The Next Generation, which is actually where we're going to take a second. Okay. And I'm going to explain to you why I hate Joe Piscopo.
Sure.
Because he's not funny. And this episode of Star Trek The Next Generation is where Data wants to get closer to humans by learning comedy, and he summons a 20th century comedian, and for whatever reason, the guy they choose is Joe Piscopo, who's not funny. Every single joke he teaches Data is the worst version of that. It's like full of shtick. It's like no wit. It's everything that Joe Piscopo is, which is not good. Why would Data choose him? He was like coming right onto the golden age of stand-up comedy. He could have used anyone afterwards. Anyone before him. George Carlin is funnier.
George Carlin is the GOAT.
But they went with Joe Piscopo.
I mean, to be fair, they probably couldn't have aired anything George Carlin said. So
I would rather show an entire elementary school 3 hours of George Carlin than 5 minutes of Joe Piscopo.
We want them to have hope.
We want them to at least have wit. I'm sorry. That episode, I was like, who is this idiot comedian who they're using as like the archetypal 20th century comedian to teach Data? I thought it was a fake. Like, I thought it was some kind of like random extra. It was Joe Piscopo. Dude. I didn't know till I watched this movie that was who it was. So, anyways, Next Generation rules, but what's that about? But he did some voice work. He did Goof Troop, Batman the Animated Series, Wild West Cowboys of Moo Mesa, 60 episodes of the Pink Panther animated series, which I didn't even know they made that many of that. Some stuff, other stuff, Bartleby, Dead Lenny, The Last Request, 3 episodes of Law & Order and an episode of Law & Order SVU, all different characters throughout all of them. Whatever. His career was mercy killed by society and time, so we don't have to worry about him anymore.
So, for those of you that don't hate Joe Piscopo, he was very famous in the late 70s because he was part of the first replacement cast for SNL. So he was on SNL with Eddie Murphy. So that's kind of where he cut his teeth.
What a coincidence, because Eddie Murphy's stand-up isn't that good either.
Whoa.
Shots fired.
I'll say.
But I will admit Eddie Murphy's is better than Joe Piscopo's.
I feel like in your mind, everyone's better than Joe Piscopo.
Do you think he's funny?
No, I don't. His SNL stuff was funny.
That may be. I didn't see his sketch comedy.
But but that's a whole different genre. That's like,
yeah, it's an entirely different thing.
Right.
All right. Look, I'll just preempt the apology. If you're a big fan of Joe Piscopo, I'm sorry. He actually has a couple jokes in this that landed for me, and Shane can attest to it because I did laugh. but he had way more that I groaned and looked at him.
Way more.
But he can hit. I think, what did I say? Even a broken Piscopo is right twice a day. Like, I think what I said, which is also not funny, but I'm not a professional comedian, so that's allowed.
You weren't on Star Trek?
No. Oh my God. If I was, I'd lose my mind up in here. Anyways, next up is Randy James, as played by Lindsay Frost. She has a ton of credits, but I didn't really recognize them, so I just didn't write a lot of them down. She had In the Shadow of a Killer, Monolith, an episode of Sequest 2032, which I just use as an excuse to say the words Sequest 2032. I don't get to say those words very often. Overblood, Mind Games, Treasure of Pirates Point, a few episodes of Frasier, Collateral Damage, The Ring, which I don't remember her in The Ring, so I'm very curious about that.
I don't either.
And then an episode of Murder in the First. So she had a few things. Like Collateral Damage and The Ring are pretty interesting latter career movies for her. Anything else for Lindsay Frost? I think I might have zoomed through a lot of her stuff. Next up is Rebecca Smithers, as played by Claire Kirkconnell. And here's the person that I accidentally stumbled over. Making of a Male Model, The Fall Guy, TJ Hooker, The Paper Chase, The A-Team, Amazing Stories. A lot of those, again, were like one-off episode or a few episode runs. She had a lot of those, like a lot of television credits. Dream On, Over My Dead Body, Playmaker, Secret Adventures. The Secret Adventures she had a few episodes on, but I think it was an animated series. So not sure how in-depth that was for its like overall run, because I've never heard of it before. So that's all I really had for Claire Kirkconnell. But at least I treated her better than this movie does.
Right.
Next up is Dr. Ernest McNabb, as played by Darren McGavin. Some good ones. Witchcraft, African Gold, The Night Stalker. Something Evil, The Night Strangler. Kolchak, The Night Stalker. Hey, you might have noticed a lot of night stuff going on. That's because he played Kolchak and all those things. If you're a fan of Kolchak, then you're excited right now. And I am one. So I am.
Kolchak will remember this.
Kolchak will remember this. He'll be my first companion that I get 100% affinity with. Hangar 18, A Christmas Story, which is like a famous Christmas movie that plays on TBS 24 hours a day. My Wicked Ways, The Legend of Errol Flynn, an episode of Tales from the Dark Side, so you know that he rules, but then he also did an episode of Monsters, so you know he rules even harder. Child of the Night, Happy Hell Night, Billy Madison. Have you ever heard of that?
Yeah.
He plays his dad.
Yeah.
And then Gargoyles. Oh, and then a couple episodes of The X-Files. So there you go. Well, I sort of wished we had come to this person in a better, more magnanimous, possibly. Oh, this is a bad movie, but in a better movie,
Like a less Piscopolian.
a
approach.
less Joe Piscopo oriented movie. But here we are. We have Arthur P. Loudermilk, as played by Vincent Price. The Vincent Price?
No.
The one from Thriller?
Oh no. Oh my god.
I mean, I could spend like a thousand
Was that
years.
it? Was that the joke you were gonna tell downstairs? You're like, I'm gonna tell you a joke later.
That was one of them. Yeah.
Okay, all right.
Was that good?
Yeah, it was.
Yeah, thank you. I mean, I could go through so many of his things. Like, I think I went through at least 3 of his movies, maybe 4 last week during our Roger Corman tribute, because he's in so many Roger Corman movies. But I do like one of the first times that I ever got to know him, and I mentioned this last time, was in 13 Ghosts of Scooby-Doo, where he played Vincent Van Ghoul. He did the voice of the Invisible Man in Abbott and Costello Meet Frankenstein at the end, when then that boat
Yeah.
and the Invisible Man's there. It has Vincent Price's voice. But, you know, more important things. House of Wax, The Fly, Return of the Fly, not as good. House on Haunted Hill, one of the top 10 best movies of all time, in my opinion.
Agreed.
The Bat, House of Usher, Pit and the Pendulum, Tales of Terror, The Raven, The Haunted Palace, The Last Man on Earth. The only adaptation of I Am Legend that I'm aware of.
You don't like Omega Man?
I mean, that's fine, but it's a very loose adaptation.
Yeah, sure. Just asking.
Yeah, definitely not one with Will Smith in it. So he was also in The Mask of the Red Death, The Tomb of Ligeia. He played Egghead in Batman 66, the Adam West program, if you've heard of it. He was in Witchfinder General, Cry of the Banshee, The Abominable Dr. Phoebes, or is it Phibes? Actually, I don't know how it's pronounced. I think, is it Phoebes? Theater of Blood, Madhouse, The Monster Club, which I secretly want to do for our show, but I'll discuss that with you later. He's in Bloodbath at the House of Death. It's like, that's a lot. There's a lot going on in that title. From a Whisper to a Scream, which is another anthology film that I want to do for us. But his last credit was The Thief and the Cobbler. So, R.I.P. to Vincent Price. He was a real one. Did you ever see the episodes of Saturday Night Live where Bill Hader does an impression of him?
It's so good.
It's so funny.
Bill Hader's so talented. But yeah, it's so good. Yeah, folks, you should definitely watch that. Bill Hader crushes it.
It's so funny though, because like Vincent Price really is phoning it in here, but he's still just like still so Vincent Price.
Right.
That it's like, I'm on board. Whenever he's giving his like villainous speech, spoiler alert for the movie. Whenever he's giving like a villainous speech, I'm like, I buy it. I'm on board.
Sold.
Next up is Thule, or as he's credited, Mr. Thule, is played by Key Luke. So many credits. An early pioneer, apparently, in Asian American cinema. So many every Charlie Chan movie. Mm-hmm. He was Lee Chan in all of those. Mad Love and the original The Green Hornet serials. He was playing Kato. Even like Toho Godzilla movies. Godzilla Raids Again, Rodan. Early Hanna-Barbera cartoons. He had voice roles in Space Ghost, Jabberjaw, Scooby-Doo, Johnny Quest, like all of these things. And like early, or Thundar the Barbarian too. Early like anime adaptations like Battle of the Planets. He was like doing voice work in that. Martial arts films like Enter the Dragon. He played Master Po in all of Kung Fu and the movie adaptation of Kung Fu, which everyone knows Master Po. Okay, well, if you don't know Master Po.
Okay. My grandma had very few VHS movies that were of any interest to me. For some reason, they had like a box set of Kung Fu. I don't know why. I used to watch that shit all the time. I loved
because it rules?
I think it was definitely a garage sale find. Like they didn't just have it.
Well, Master Po was the one who gave him the name Grasshopper, wasn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yeah. Master Po was huge in that series. So there you go. And then I think one that's for if you're like me and you're wondering, why does this dude seem so familiar? But I wonder why he isn't like kind of look blind and have like long gray hair and a weird hat. It's because you're thinking of him in both Gremlins movies where he played the old man who had the Mogwai. That was him.
Whoa.
Yes.
No way.
Yes.
That's crazy.
It all goes back to the Gremlins, baby.
I knew it.
So there you go. Key Luke. And honestly, like that barely scratches the surface. This man's been in so many things. I had to pick like the big heavy hitters. But honestly, if there's like another Hanna-Barbera cartoon, if there's another anything, basically, there's probably like an opportunity for any Asian American at the time. He was there. He showed up. He's in so many things. Like he's a real pioneer in the field. So awesome to see him in this, where he's like having a good time. It seems like. Next up is a favorite of mine. It's Lieutenant Herzog, as played by Robert Picardo.
I was shocked to see him in this, and I'm also shocked that he looks exactly the same.
You're wondering why he was in the Delta Quadrant with Janeway, right?
Yeah. Right.
At least one person laughed at that somewhere out there. Yeah, so a lot of stuff. The Howling, Explorers, Legend, Back to School, Munchies, Inner Space, Amazon Women on the Moon, 976 Evil, The Burbs, Total Recall, Gremlins 2, an episode of Tales from the Crypt, Page Master. It's like, oh, is this on the last thing on my list? Oh, Star Trek Voyager, where he played the Doctor.
Famously.
Yes. And I think he appeared in Deep Space Nine and TNG as the man that the hologram that he portrays was based off of.
Right.
So he appears in a lot of Star Trek franchise stuff and other things too, obviously. But to me, he'll always be the Doctor. Next up is Captain Mayberry. It's played by Mel Stewart. I only got a few things from him just because he was like really interesting and he made an impression for like his one scene. He was in Funny Man, Cry Uncle, All in the Family, Bride of the Reanimator, and then Made in America. And the last person I put on my list was the Butcher in Thul's Delicatessen. I don't know what you call that place. That was Professor Toru Tanaka, which was he was a former professional wrestler who broke into acting in the 80s. An Eye for an Eye, Wizards and Warriors, Revenge of the Ninja, Chattanooga Choo Choo, Missing in Action 2, Pee-wee's Big Adventure, Shanghai Surprise, The Running Man.
So good.
Do you remember who he was in The Running Man?
I don't know his character's name, but I know who he was.
Well, he at the end he was Plane Zero, but he started out as Sub-Zero.
Right.
Do you remember how Arnold Schwarzenegger said that? It's like, he was Sub-Zero. Now he is Plane Zero. So there you go.
He was in a lot of Schwarzenegger movies.
He was, yeah. He was in Darkman, Alligator 2, The Mutation, Deadly Game, Three Ninjas, Last Action Hero, also with Arnold.
Solid.
Yeah. And then Hard Justice was the last thing I put in my notes, but he was actually in a lot of stuff.
He was in True Lies.
Oh, was he? I missed that. I'm sorry.
In his bio, they say that he like was a successor to another famous Asian actor to be like the tough guy. So he has a lot of roles where he plays like the henchman or like some kind of bodyguard. So you probably have seen this guy in a ton of stuff and not even realized it. So
yeah. So there you go. That is Professor Toru Tanaka, which is not his real name. That was his stage name, I guess. Should have written down his real name, but I only have so much time for research, guys. I have a full-time job. All right, well, that'll do it for the cast and crew, unless there's someone you wanted to bring up that I missed.
His real name is Charles Kalani.
Oh, that's right.
Yep.
Okay. I did actually look that up. I just didn't write it down, so my bad.
Yeah, no, I think you definitely covered everybody that's of import. So now what?
So what comes next? Perhaps it's time for the
Plot description.
Seinfeld.
Perfect. Nailed it.
Perfect Seinfeld.
Perfect.
All right.
I thought I was in the room.
They're in the room where it happens, and some jag just walks in without knocking.
With Kramer.
So we get our opening logo. It's New World Pictures. That of the formerly run by the late great Roger Corman. By this point, he had moved on. Opening credits, just letters flying to the screen. Our stars are in white. Dead Heat is in red, so you know it's different because it's the title. Sweeping shot, aerial shot of the city of LA. Definitely got buildings. You get inside of interior shot of a car. Some dirty looking villain types donning some masks and getting their guns ready. Their guns are Uzis because it's the 80s. And the masks are like vaguely Batman cowls, I would describe them as. Like where do you even buy one of those?
I don't know.
Because like, sign me up, buddy. And the one says, come on, to the driver. And they're like, hey, he's driving as fast as he can. Like, you can't alert the police before you get there. That's a good way to get arrested. Yeah, so there's you know where they're going because it cuts between them in the car and a diamond store where an old woman is looking at some diamonds. They're probably going to rob it. The masked men do, in fact, go in and threaten the customers at the diamond store. They tell one lady, if you want to die, now's the chance of a lifetime. It's like, you're technically correct, which is the best kind of correct. So you can only die once. Or
and
then
then they like spike her off the ground.
Well, no, they just toss her.
Yeah, that's what I mean. They're just like
get down. So and I was wondering why they even wore masks, because one of them calls the other one Smitty. I'm like, wait, if you're going to say your name Smitty, why are you covering your faces up? Which we also know from later about what is going on with the plot of this.
Right.
There's no reason to hide your identity.
Correct.
Because you're going to melt. Spoiler alert. An employee triggers a silent alarm, and we cut to our heroes of sorts. Roger Mortis, as played by Treat Williams, and Doug Bigelow, as played by Joe Piscopo.
Male gigolo.
I wish. As they drive in a red convertible. Honestly, no, though. Like, Rob Schneider and Joe Piscopo are in a competition to see who is the least funny person. You're right. That's an inspired choice, Shane, for a throwaway joke.
I think I'd pick Rob Schneider.
They're in a red convertible, which I think is a 1960 Impala, but someone can correct me. We get the idea that Doug is the goofball of the group because he's jamming out and air drumming to the off-brand Led Zeppelin song. Is what you pointed out it was?
Yeah, it was like Black Dog, but like worse.
Yeah, it's like a version of Black Dog. It's like, but like legally similar to, but legally distinct from.
Yeah.
Do you remember that? Like, what was that from the, was that also a Futurama joke? It's like, we are similar to, but legally distinct from the Lollipop Guild.
Yeah.
The Lollipop Guild is like that. So there you go. They won't get sued by the, at that time, very litigious Led Zeppelin. Roger's annoyed with Doug because he didn't tell him they're going to go undercover. He thought they were going plain clothes. So the difference is that Roger's wearing a suit and Doug is just wearing like a gray shirt and a leather jacket. So you get the idea that one of them is a little more by the book than the other, but neither of them are particularly by the book, as we'll find out. So what is it? Roger, they get the call, which, by the way, like on the radio, Doug is terrible too. He's like, what? He's like, there's like whatever the name of the car is, like 8 Unicorn 69. Like what? Like,
right.
Supposed to say, that's not how call signs work. So Roger throws the car into a turn. They do like a real quick, like Yui, like handbrake turn. And he remarks that he doesn't want to lose them. Doug is alarmed and says, you can't get him if you're dead. Or can you? Let's find out.
Foreshadowing.
Our heroes arrive on the scene to find that like most other cops in the area must have mobilized way faster than they did. There's like an army of cops there.
So many.
And some of them are even like it's not like all patrol. Like there's a bunch of like SWAT guys.
Like various cops.
Yeah. Cops of every shape,
every
and
walk
size.
of life.
Yeah. Every version of cop you can think of. So they get there and what is it? They're briefed that the armed men are in the diamond store by the lieutenant, played by Robert Picardo. The robbers finish grabbing up diamonds. They say they filled up their bags, which are just pillowcases. They definitely didn't, but they're like, we're done here. Cops get into position. Very 1980s gunfight breaks out with like tons of guns being fired.
Tons.
Yeah. A lot of poor aiming methodologies are at play, but it doesn't matter. The important thing is that no matter how many times the thieves are shot, they don't go down. They're still kicking, still killing cops. And the cops are like really bad at finding cover because they get killed frequently. I think we watched at least like 12 cops die in the scene. Easily. So there you go. Finally, like after like this lengthy scene of many gunshots, Roger goes over to Doug. Doug says, Doug says that they must have been shot 50 times. And Roger says, well, maybe they're just flesh wounds or whatever. It's like, 50 flesh wounds by guns is a lot of flesh wounds. So Roger says he wants to borrow the lieutenant's car. The lieutenant reacts poorly to this because he knows that means Roger's going to do some cowboy stuff. And we, as the audience, are very excited for it. Roger goes over to the lieutenant's car. He takes it, even though it was being used as cover by other cops. They just like dive out of the way, whatever. We don't have time to think about the cost in terms of human life because a lot of people are going to die during this movie. Roger drives the car, like doing a couple passes by the villains, firing at them with a one-handed shotgun shot, which let me tell you about shotguns. Not an easy way to fire one, but I guess it works enough that one of the villains separates from the other. The other one who is left behind goes to draw a grenade. He picks it up, he pulls the pin, and he goes to throw it. But when he lifts his hand to do so, Doug fires and manages to shoot it out of his hand. It falls. He does an exaggerated, uh-oh, and then explodes. And then, Shane, what happens?
Well, after he's blown to bits, there is a amazing car ramming scene.
You loved this.
Dude, that was crazy because it was so like they didn't slow it down or anything. They're just like, yeah, we're just going to smash this guy with a car.
Plow right into this dude. So basically, the guy who was left goes to get into the car. the guy who was left over from the robbers goes to get into the car, and he gets run into by Roger in the lieutenant's car. The lieutenant is not happy about this. His car has just been wrecked. Devastating RIP to a car, I guess. But the important thing is that guy is dead. But, Doug is not one to let bygones be bygones.
For sure.
So they approach, and what he says...
He reads him his rights.
You have the right to remain ugly.
Yeah.
Which, by the way, is a crime. You can't... Or not a crime, but...
being ugly?
If he were still alive... and he said you have the right to remain ugly, that would be grounds for dismissal of the case.
Gotcha.
Miranda rights are serious. So there you go. So the lieutenant comes over. He like chastises them. He's like, what kind of cowboy such and such no nonsense garbage are you doing? And then he's like, yo, the captain will hear about this. I don't know why I did a southern accent for Robert Picardo because he definitely didn't have one.
I don't know either.
But so then Doug turns to Roger and he's like, well, I bet we're going to hear about this. Cut to a no nonsense 1980s, captain yelling at them. Captain Mayberry, as we have mentioned. He's going through the list of infractions that Roger and Doug have committed. Unauthorized use of a city vehicle, reckless endangerment, use of a non-regulation firearm, to which Roger says, that was me, that wasn't Doug. Then disrespectful conduct, flippant and distasteful remarks, and then Doug's like, that was me. So that was kind of funny.
That was, yeah.
Yeah, so and then apparently 18 unpaid parking tickets?
Yeah.
So they're problematic. So the captain tells them they're both on double probation? They're on probation twice.
Yeah.
So yeah, they're on probation twice. But he's like, but you did what the lieutenant couldn't do. So I'm gonna cut you some slack. He's like, oh, are you saying they get results? They're loose cannons, but they get results. It's like such a prototypical like cop moment.
Right. As
they leave, Doug is rambling about what he loves about the job. After he has another unfunny joke where he hits on a nun. Did you see that?
Yeah.
That was ridiculous. So like he's saying, he says that he loves the power, he loves the little badges, and he loves being a target for everyone within sniping distance of a donut shop. Like, all right, Joe Piscopo, we get it. You can do jokes. Back in their office, which they apparently have an entire office just for the two of them, Which, by the way, wouldn't you separate two problem cops like this if they're that much of a problem? I don't know. I'm not an administrator. Just my idea. Back in their office, they discuss the quote-unquote Cash and Dash gang, which is what the two men that we saw and then apparently a string of other robberies have been attributed to. Their modus operandi and how there seem to be a larger number of them because the descriptions change between jobs. Plus, they killed two of them because we watched that happen.
Right.
Doug is just over there throwing darts at a map of Los Angeles County. So whatever. They get a call from Smithers down at the morgue asking them to come down. So smash cut to the morgue.
Not what I thought Smithers was going to look like.
No, less attractive. So Doug is going on and on about knowing your death day. This is like an important conversation. So he's talking about how if he knew his death day, he would just have a huge party and go wild and get turned up. Well, not turned up because they don't say that back then, but you get it.
Turning down for what?
Then end with a beautiful woman, and then that's how he'd end his death day.
Yeah.
Dr. Smithers, who we learn is Rebecca Smithers, so attractive female doctor. There's some tension between her and Roger because he asks her how she's been, and she gets upset about it and says, if you want to inquire about my health, don't do it in the front of a bunch of junkies that you just exploded. Is that how she phrases it?
She's got to have a home phone number.
Oh, yeah, she has a home phone number. Like, hey, guess what? No one does anymore, lady. But yeah, so he hasn't called. So, yeah, relationship has gone sour, but there's street trash that is mutilated. She shows them the body of one of the dead men, and he has stitches in like the torso, the upper torso and through the middle. But they were stitches from autopsies given by Rebecca herself because she did an autopsy on them when they were dead. Another doctor that I guess is her supervisor, Dr. McNabb, he rolls in. He's like, Rebecca must have made some kind of mistake. And even though she had been showing pictures of the initial autopsy, like when these guys were initially dead, the boss is gaslighting her, just being like, no, like you must have made a mistake. Like, what do you think, that they came back or something? Everyone looks around. Did they come back? Rebecca storms off. Roger goes after her, bring her some coffee. But they have this weird exchange where it's like, you take 2 sugars, right? It's like, I used to, but then she's smoking. He's like, but you used to give up smoking. And she's like, well, I gave up some other bad habits and picked up some additional ones or whatever, implying that he was a bad habit.
Right.
Their relationship really matters a lot to this early part of the movie. Will not matter later. And Roger's taken aback because he came there to give her moral support. But he notes that she has a fake fish tank with fake fish in it. And she says what? It's like, it's because they don't die as much. It's like really like trying to drag everyone down here. Doesn't matter. We don't have time to think about that because Rebecca asks if Roger believes her, and he only agrees in as much as there's something weird definitely going on. So Rebecca says, aside from being already dead, there was also a specific chemical in the skin of the dead guys, and that was a proprietary chemical to a company called Dante Pharmaceutical. And it's called what? I can never remember this. Sulfathiazole?
Sure.
Sulfathiazole, I think is the name of it. Smash cut to Roger and Doug pulling up into the Dante building. Dante Pharmaceutical, baby. Also a building that shows up in Biodome. So eagle-eyed listeners will notice. Doug asks what their excuse will be. And Roger's like, we'll just be honest, because like the chemical that we found on 2 murderers who were earlier dead were from this place. At the front desk, some security guard is just openly looking at a porn magazine rather than, acknowledging the cops are there. And it takes them a second to get his attention. And it's like broad daylight out, dude. Like, put away the porn magazine. What year do you think this is? Doug pulls it down and says, sorry to interrupt your erection. One of the few funny lines from Joe Piscopo. But the guy calls Miss James at the front. Randy James is her name, as we'll come to know. Randy notes that she's in charge of public relations when Roger asks if she's like the manager of the facility. He asks about the drug, sulfathiazole. Oh, there it is. I wrote it right there. Sulfathiazole. And Doug asks if she knows any zombies. Oh, Doug, you rascal, you. When Roger asks what the drug is used for, she gives her like a runaround. Like it's like, oh, it's used for like hygiene products and cleaning products and, just general these and that's is. But she says that it hasn't been used since the 40s. So it's not primarily used as a antiseptic agent. So they, she sees some pictures of the dead men and Randy's like, I don't know who they are. Roger presciently asks about a white room where air is evacuated to kill animal test subjects. Doug jokes that didn't they have one of those at Disneyland, like a place to kill puppies?
Yeah.
Randy notes there's also a room with toxic waste, but that it's properly disposed of, so I have no reason to go in there. In order to sneak into the room, Doug pretends he has to use the restroom, so Roger and Randy walk away, and then Doug shorts out the control panel and walks into the quote-unquote toxic waste room. I know I'm describing a lot of things very quickly.
Yeah.
Do you want to go into like the decompression chamber where dogs are murdered?
Well, when you put it that way.
So there's a decompression chamber. Room. Yeah, Chekhov's decompression chamber is what we'll call this one. Even though the movie itself isn't sure about the difference between like decompression and just like
asphyxiation. Yeah,
it doesn't seem to understand these are very different things. But if the movie doesn't understand it, then why should we? Doug enters the room that is supposedly the toxic waste room, but it isn't. It is a massive chamber with some kind of strange device in the middle. He, goes over there. There's a tarp over some kind of mass in the center. He lifts it, but it's a monster.
Yeah, I don't know what
monstrous creature is laying there. Yeah, with like 8 faces and
it was weird.
It's a beast. It's a creature. Like it's dressed like a biker. It's a rather rotund, but the major problem is like beyond the surgical scars from where it was given an autopsy, it also has like 3 faces, and I don't understand how that happens. But it doesn't matter. That thing's upset from being alive, I guess, and starts attacking Doug. In the lobby, Roger's making some excuses for his partner. Randy's like, oh, he's a Neanderthal. And Roger's like, yes, but he's a nice Neanderthal. And Randy seems like okay with it. He's like, oh, yeah, it's like the world's full of them. Am I right? The 80s. So whatever. No time to talk about that because back in the chamber, Doug decides to open fire at the zombie monsters trying to attack him. Back in the lobby, one of the security guards just decides to start shooting Roger. Only reasonable thing, if there's gunfire, kill the cop. Yeah. Well, Roger's not one to play games. He kills that. Well, he shoots the security guard. We later find out he didn't kill them because he's going to die later on. Roger runs to where Doug is fighting the creature. The fight is spilled into like the hallway, kind of outside of like the area where the the chamber was, but also outside of the area where the asphyxiation / decompression room is. So as Doug is fighting the creature, Roger's involved in the struggle, but gets pushed into the air decompression chamber, and then a shadowy figure from another room pushes the button that initiates the process to remove the air / decompress, whatever they are actually doing there. Roger's trying to get Doug's attention, but Doug is too busy beating on the monster with a fire extinguisher to pay attention. We get a lot of dog double takes from a little puppy in a cage next to it, which presumably was next to be killed. And we're supposed to find this funny because the dog is reacting. But like as soon as the scene's over, this dog's going to die.
For sure, yep.
That's devastating.
Not funny.
No. And now there was the joke that Joe Piscopo made earlier about dogs getting skin cancer. And I said, I didn't say it. I told you I'm not going to say most of his jokes. We're just going to move on because his jokes are bad until I say them.
So Doug's too busy not caring. Let's be real.
Well, Doug was not.
He was like, I should open that door. No shit, Doug.
Yeah, no kidding, bro. Although I don't think he could have because I think it was sealed whenever the shadow figure started. But he didn't try to is the important thing. So yeah, after the puppy reaction shots, that same security guard that Roger had shot earlier comes back, and then Doug just shoots him. So there you go.
Right.
He fails to get the door open. Roger dies. So cut to the place is crawling with cops. Doug is sitting there clearly traumatized by his friend's death, which is one of the few moments it's like, oh, hey, this guy actually has feelings and ideas. Rebecca arrives, and Doug remarks that Roger is dead and died how dogs are supposed to die. Like I said, he's having a hard time with it. Rebecca demands to see the body, so they go to the decompression room, and Rebecca wants to know what happened, and Doug says she wouldn't believe it, but takes her into the chamber where the creature came from with like the machine in it. At the keyboard, Rebecca like basically just types a few things and figures out it's a resurrection machine.
You think she was in on it?
I don't know, man. She was off pretty fast to know what's going on, but she also does figure things out very fast. So who knows? It's hard to tell if it's just like narrative shorthand or if she's like sus. So in any case, she finds out that the machine is to resurrect people. And the next scene, they have Roger on the table where the machine is. And, Doug asks, what about the soul? And Rebecca says, looks like they found a way around that. Oh, thank God. We didn't have to have a conversation about souls.
Yeah, really.
They found a way
With
around
Joe Piscopo.
Yeah, Joe Piscopo, of all people, asking about souls.
He's an Episcopalian.
More like a...
Solid.
So next up... Doug says, what if he comes back as a mindless, monster or whatever, like maniac? Rebecca's like, oh, that's up to you to put a bullet in his head. He's like, oh, thanks. They fire up the machine. We get some electricity effects, some lighting effects. Roger's vibrating on the table. Boom, Treat Williams is back up. And he's like, hi, guys. Acting like nothing's changed. Doug is asking Roger about how he feels, but as he goes to answer, he notices the chamber he's in, and he's like, whoa, what's this? What are we doing? When they again reiterate that he has to tell him how he feels, he says he feels terrific and incredible. McNabb comes in, and he's surprised to find Roger alive because he's been dead for the past hour. Rebecca undoes his shirt to check his vitals, asks what he remembers from earlier. He recounts the fight, and he says he blacked out in the chamber. So he thinks like, oh, it must have been really close to death. He notes that he had an out-of-body experience and he could see his body from the outside, but when he went to touch it, he felt like he was blasted by 10,000 volts. And McNabb is like, oh yeah, that totally happens, dude.
Yeah, he's like, don't worry about it.
Yeah, he's like, don't worry about it. That's what happens. Yeah, it's common in these things. Rebecca notes that Roger was dead for over an hour. She takes her stethoscope out and sees he doesn't have a heartbeat. He listens, doesn't have a heartbeat. He says that the stethoscope must be broken. McNabb's like, that can't happen. And listens is like, you must be faking it. Right. It's like faking your heart not beating. What is he, Batman? Like, come on. That's ridiculous. But that's McNabb for you. He's either dumb or evil. Doug notes that they've seen Roger shit-faced before, so he's looked way worse off than this. And Roger again reiterates that he feels amazing, so death must rule. McNabb's angry and says he has two real corpses to deal with that won't be making a comeback anytime soon, and he storms away. Roger, then cuts his wrist on some glass, and despite it allegedly being on the artery, he doesn't bleed at all.
Yeah, he sparkles a little bit.
Yeah, why? What was that?
I don't know.
He has some Edward Cullen in him.
Oh, no.
But he does also like bleed later when he's damaged.
Yeah, right.
It's like this one time though, he won't bleed. The wound just kind of sparkles, and Roger is finally starting to come to terms with the fact that he's undead. Rebecca says that he doesn't know the worst of it, and Roger's like, "I'm dead. What? How much worse can it get?" Rebecca's like, "Yo, you only have like 10 to 12 hours before your body will start to decay and you'll turn into like an organic stew."
Like, how does she know this?
'Cause notes.
I think she was in on it.
You think she was in on it?
I do. I think that's why he killed her too.
What? Spoiler alert. So Rebecca wants to observe Roger in the lab, but Roger wants to spend his remaining hours tracking down whoever killed him. So he's like the character in the movie DOA who gets poisoned and wants to track down the murderer.
Solid.
Why? Just because the movie makes that exact same?
Yeah, no, it's just a solid reference.
Back in the car, Roger notes that he feels like he could run the Boston Marathon. This is a funny exchange. And then Doug says, oh, they don't allow dead people in there. And Roger's like, you think they check? And Doug's like, oh, they're very strict about it. That was a very funny exchange. It's one of the few funny Doug Piscopo moments. Or Joe Piscopo. Doug Bigelow is his name. Whatever. I can't even be bothered. Roger notes that he's starting to look dead, so they have to stop at a store to get makeup. So that gives Doug the opportunity to make homophobic jokes. And I guess I have to say what they are because they become integral to the plot later.
Yeah.
So what is it? Mulberry wine is the type of lipstick he gets that Roger gets.
Yeah.
And Doug says, it really brings out your eyes. Or he says it in an effeminate way. I did my best. I don't like it, like with a lisp and stuff like that. And then keeps saying more gay-oriented jokes for longer than we'd like. But fortunately, there's a somewhat comedic scene later where Roger's trying to apply the makeup as they're driving. And he's like, how do women do this? Because he's like got lipstick over his face.
Like everywhere.
Yeah, what an idiot. But they arrive in an affluent neighborhood and they find that Randy from earlier, the lady from the Dante's pharmaceutical company, she's trying to flee, to pack up her vehicle and flee. So they get her. They go inside, and she insists she's just a public relations person. She doesn't know anything about what's going on, and when the gunfire happened, she fled. But she does say something about how they're trying to play good cop, bad cop, but she's trying to say that Roger's the good cop because he's wearing makeup. And he's like, lady, I was put in a decompression room and almost murdered, so I'm here for revenge. So he's the bad cop, but really he's not. Doug is the bad cop because he sucks at copping. Doug finds a VHS tape, which Randy says is private, and tries to stop Doug from playing it. But they say she has no expectation of privacy despite not being held in any way. The tape starts, and we see Vincent Price? Arthur Loudermilk on his deathbed addressing someone he calls Princess and about to make some kind of final proclamation. No time. Gunfire. Outside, two zombified gunmen come through the sliding glass door, and let me tell you, they are zombified.
Yeah, these guys were.
They're zombed up.
Yeah.
Both Roger and Doug are shooting the zombies, but the zombies take the shots and don't care because they're zombies. The zombies also shoot Roger, who doesn't die because he's a zombie too. But he does bleed, so it does kind of go against earlier logic. Doesn't matter. We have time. Randy asks if he's okay. He's like, what Doug's like, remember the good old days when guns killed people? It's like, I doubt most people who go to a school like those days. Doug, Randy, and Roger flee into the back patio with the zombies in pursuit. The pool and hot tub area, or I guess jacuzzi, is it the same as the hot tub? Or is this a brand of hot tub? I don't know. The zombies separate, searching for their victims. The one zombie realizes Doug is hiding in like a little doorway, grabs him, throws him over.
That was a pretty cool scene.
Huh?
Like he punched through the grab.
Yeah, grabbed him and like threw him over. Yeah. But right when he's about to get assistance from his zombie down by the jacuzzi, boom, up comes Roger, who is in the water the whole time because he doesn't have to breathe anymore because he's a zombie. Which, by the way, where was Randy during this scene?
In the thing with Joe Piscopo. They show her like kind of crawling out of the closet after he gets grabbed and thrown.
Oh, okay.
He was in there with her. Which should make a lot of sense how the spacing got. I think they cut a scene.
Oh, probably for the best.
Yeah.
Anyways, there's a big struggle. What is it? Doug is punching the zombie in the nuts a bunch of times, and he presumably breaks off his nuts.
He's like, oh no.
Based on his reaction. But Roger tosses the one dude into the jacuzzi and throws a boombox in there with him. Electrocutes the dude. And apparently that's how you kill zombies, is with electricity.
Apparently.
Well, they won't address it, but it definitely happens. The other zombie whose nuts were punched off by Doug He gets stabbed through with an umbrella and thrown into the water, and I guess is just stuck underwater now because he's not dead. He just lives underwater now. Randy is confused about why she's being attacked. Roger tells her that it must be because she knows something, and Randy's like, I don't know anything. I'm just a glorified tour guide. So this is another one of those bad jokes where Doug tells Roger that he was underwater in the jacuzzi for 5 straight minutes and says, could you teach my girlfriend how to do that? Because of intercourse.
Oh, okay.
Well, I mean, certain...
Yeah.
Depends on how you define that.
Yep.
Back in the house, Randy is surveying the damage and says that her fish are dead. She apparently had some specific blue fish she really loved. She's like, oh, they always die. And Doug's like, extenuating circumstances much. He doesn't really say that, but he might as well because that's the kind of jokes he makes. But then suddenly the video of Arthur Loudermilk comes on again. And he's, doing like a speech to whoever Princess is. And Roger's like, oh, didn't he just die? And Randy's like, yes, a couple days ago. But that's when she reveals that Arthur Loudermilk was her father.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry. I thought you were going to say something else.
Well, like there's like a lot of things here that like never pay off. Well, like this.
Most of the movie.
Yeah.
I like the idea that like he seems to have affection for her, yet does he?
Right.
Yeah. Thanks for nothing, movie. But Randy asks Roger how he's not dead, and he tells her, oh, I'm a walking corpse, just like the assassins. Seems Randy doesn't believe it, and Roger's just like, you at the program. Like, figured out. Finally relenting, Randy explains that Dante Pharmaceuticals is basically a think tank that researched anything that Arthur Loudermilk wanted. So whatever the subject was, they did it. Randy doesn't seem to believe that her father would have been involved in the resurrection project, but she does say that she has delivered some sulfathiazole to a man named Thule in Chinatown. Roger wants to take Randy with him to Chinatown, and Randy says she knows her rights, and Roger's like, well, let me remind you of them, and arrests her on suspicion of all of the crimes they've seen. So she decides to go with them rather than spend time in jail. Doug tells Roger that he should change his clothes because he has bullet holes and blood all over himself. Randy offers up some men's clothes. And then we get another fun comedic scene where Doug is like, oh, is that for your overnight guests? And Randy's like, it's for an ex, a very ex. And it's like, what does that mean? Is he dead? So he might be dead. We actually get a pretty cool scene here. Roger is brushing his hair, and you notice that some of it is falling out, so he's decaying. But then we get a cool jump scare where he like opens the mirror up to put the brush back in and shuts the mirror, and then sees like a zombified version of himself.
That was a good scene.
It was, yeah. We could have used more scenes like that.
We sure could have.
But yeah, Roger comes out. He's dressed in, I guess, a gaudy outfit, but all 80s clothes kind of look gaudy to me, so it doesn't look that different than anything else anyone's wearing. It's just the way everyone comments on it is it's gaudy. It's like, what? Because it has blue and green on it? Oh, geez. Stop the presses. Guys wearing some bright colors. So what is it? They come out. They go outside and they have another parking ticket on their car. And Roger asks Doug how many that is this month. And Doug's like, why would you care? Oh, good point. Because I'm about to die of being a zombie. The gang arrive at some meat market, which is it's a very Asian themed establishment, presumably an Asian meat market of sorts.
Well, they said Chinatown.
Well, they did go to Chinatown, yeah. But the market is also Asian.
Yep.
There's a butcher working at the front who's very tough and strong and ignores them as he's using his meat cleaver to cut up pieces of, I guess, chicken. Whenever Roger shows his badge, the guy cuts it in half. So he's like, oh, this guy doesn't even care about the law. That gives Doug the chance to be slightly racist and call the butcher Mongo and say that if they don't talk to Thule, then he's going to have to kick some honorable ass. I'm like, oh, okay. Just light racism. Hopefully it doesn't get more racist.
Don't worry.
Shane, will it?
Oh, it does.
Oh, no.
I don't even know how.
Thule comes out. Randy tells him something awful has happened, and Thule like indicates he knows all about it. It's like ask if these are the police detectives. They ask him about what he's received from the Dante Pharmaceuticals Company. The butcher shouts and acts threatening, so Roger draws his gun. Doug threatens that if the butcher takes another step, he'll find himself dead. Not that much of a threat anymore. Thule says that life and death are a part of the same spirit, which leads Doug to say possibly the most racist thing he says, which is that he should write fortune cookies. I'm like, okay. But Thule says that he'll demonstrate that life and death aren't that different, and he flips a switch, which activates like a portable version of the resurrection device in the very room. The butcher attacks, and he's thrown to the side as Thule flees. So the butcher's out of commission for right now. But the resurrection device, this is one of my favorite scenes. How do you feel about this? Don't think about it logically. Think about it in terms of how good it looks.
It's wild.
It's fun. That's the important thing.
It's like you every time it's like, oh, they can't get any crazier, and then they just one up themselves.
It's all about the fun for this scene because
so good.
Nothing about this makes any sense.
No, none.
So the resurrection device brings all of the butchered animals to life, and some pretty funny moments because it's like a severed chicken head comes to life, a bunch of pig, like the pig is alive, some ducks, some chickens, some fish. Just the fish never do anything; they just sit there and like flop around. Somewhat like chicken wings that are like in sauce come to life.
Yeah,
pretty funny.
The liver.
So I love that. Whoa, we'll get to the liver though. We'll get to it. So Doug cracks that he lost his appetite because there's a joke going into this that Doug is excited to visit a Asian meat market because he loves to eat the food.
Right.
Well, he's lost his appetite. Then they get attacked. What is it? A resurrected pig jumps on Doug, tackles him. A slab of liver meat comes to life and just wraps around Roger's face. Randy, backing up in concern, bumps into a series of undead ducks that are very upset with her. Not doing anything serious to her, just like detaining her.
Just beating her with
just like flopping around with their duck powers. And so Doug says that from now on he's a vegetarian.
Yeah.
And he takes out his gun and says, this little piggy's going to the market, and just like headshots the pig. Takes care of it for now. The butcher comes back and goes to attack Roger with a meat cleaver. He actually is successful. He cuts like, he cuts a finger off of Roger. But Doug shoots him and then kills him. And he's surprised. Like, he went down with one shot. And Roger's like, yeah, not everyone's a zombie. But however, they hear something banging from the walk-in freezer. So they all turn to face like the final boss of this encounter. And the door bursts open. And there's like it
looked like a cow.
It was like
bull.
a headless and footless, but like the body of a cow comes marching out. Roger is like, oh, how are we going to fight this? And Doug says, maybe they can drown it in A1 sauce. I'm like, Doug, please, for the love of God, take something seriously.
Like, Doug, give us 5 minutes.
And then there's a brief duck reaction shot. I don't know if you saw that.
He shoots it.
When he makes that joke, the duck that goes like, wah, 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 like makes a reaction shot and he shoots it in the head. So Doug doesn't even want the duck to laugh at him. The zombie cow rears up and then does something really cool where it like cracks itself open and like you know how like creatures in a butcher shop, like they are cut open. So it like opens up like a goddamn sarlacc is about to envelop the Roger into it. So it like goes in and gets him and like pins him down. But Doug, being the quick thinker every once in a while, uses a meat hook to pull the cow off of Roger and then just shoots it a bunch of times and it seems to immobilize it. But while he's on the ground, Roger notices the machine above him, which I don't know how they didn't notice the machine shooting electricity above them that entire time because it's not that big of a building. Doesn't matter. Roger sees it. He shoots it. Boom. All of the zombie creatures finally settle down and die and sizzle, which presumably is part of like the end of their life, their afterlife. They sizzle at the end. So there you go. They solve the monster puzzle. Randy sees that a finger is missing, and she's like, "Oh, Roger, you're hurt." And he loads his gun, and he says,
"Time in,
lady, I'm fucking dead."
I know. It's so good.
I thought you wanted to say that one.
I was going to put in a song.
Oh.
It's cool.
He doesn't say that.
He says what? Nothing.
And then Randy's like, that doesn't give you right to be rude. In the back room, Roger and Doug are just
It was his tone.
Huh?
It was his tone.
His tone?
Like how he delivered the line.
Sassily?
Yeah, he's like, lady, I'm fucking dead.
Lady, I'm fucking dead.
Yeah, so good.
I didn't deliver it the same way, but I'm also not fucking dead.
You're also not Treat Williams.
In the back room, Roger and Doug are going through stuff, just like trying to find clues, tossing the place. They find a duck head hooked up to some wires, and they flip the switch, and the duck head comes to life. And Roger says, "Oh, zombie duck heads, what a concept." And Doug says, this could replace the whoopee cushion.
Yeah.
And I once again say, how? A whoopee cushion is to make someone seem like they farted. How would a undead duck head help you think someone farted?
Can you imagine sitting on a duck head that's like electrocuted? I'd be electrocuted.
No. I wouldn't be as embarrassed. I'd be angrier. In any case, Roger finds a clue on a piece of paper, and he has to get Doug's attention because Doug's still paying attention to the duck. They deduce that the paper has a series of initials of certain people, because one of them is APL, which is Arthur P. Loudermilk. And so the list must be the list and the dates on it are the dates of death of certain people who must be involved in this. So they go back to the car. Doug is driving while Roger is in the back with Randy, and she's sewing his finger back on. He remarks that she's quite the seamstress because he has to hit on every woman that exists, apparently. She says that she hopes it doesn't get infected. Ha ha ha. Because he's dead. It can't. That's the joke. Oh, yeah. The group arrive at the library. What Doug makes a crack about. Like, I've never seen the inside of a library. He's like, yeah, dude, you've never seen the inside of a book, you dipshit. So they go in there. They're researching everything. They find out all the people who died. There's a Denim King. There's like a microchip guy. There's a bunch of like famous rich people who've died.
So, just a question for you.
Yeah.
Do you think he ad-libbed any of this stuff, or is it all written for him?
Joe Piscopo?
Yeah.
I assume he ad-libbed everything.
Okay.
Well, if he didn't, then I guess I have to apologize to him. But I won't. But he also, during the time they're going through it, he never finds a single damn thing other than that there's a Lakers game that didn't go his way because the point spread didn't get to wherever he would make money.
Right.
He only bet $10 on it. Like, chill out, dude. It's like less than the cost of a chicken sandwich. But maybe not in the 80s. Oh, yeah, but like once they finish going through all the obituaries, they find all the rich people they're looking for. Roger looks up and sees the clock, and he has like a moment of like introspection. And he says, what, they'll be writing his obituary soon. And he's like, what, the husband of nobody, the father of none. And imagine you go out in a blaze of glory, and then he just like runs away. It's like, okay, dude, I get it. You're about to die, but don't have to be drama queen about it. Doug chases him and catches up to him, which I like Doug chasing him because he's like, Roger. He's like whisper
quiet,
yelling
like,
after.
Yeah.
It's like weird for Doug to show that much respect to an institution. But he tries to explain they don't have time for this. And Roger says he can't live a lifetime in 6 hours. And Doug, again, showing brief moments of like actual depth, says that no one has the time that they need. But Doug also reminds him that when they're in training, they told them that they can't be a good cop and a dead cop. And he's like, well, you have a chance to prove him wrong. You can be good and dead. And the pep talk seems to work. So like they all go off, and what like Doug says, we're going to trash their ass. And Roger's like, it's asses, plural. Remember that. It'll come in handy later.
Put a pin in that one.
We're back in the car again. In the car, Roger talks about how the population is so great now that half all the people who ever lived are still alive now. Randy doubts it, but he's actually right. That was true. Then we get Doug saying something about, if you multiply the population of the state of Rhode Island by my ex-wife's weight, and mercifully the joke is cut short. Thank you for that editor. We instead smash cut to an elevator opening and the three of them arriving at the morgue. Rebecca is there to speak with Roger, but for whatever reason, Randy is really catty with Rebecca, being like, what? Oh, you're just a medical pathologist. Ugh. It's basically a situation where both these women have an interest in Roger, who, by the way, is only going to be alive for like a few more hours. So, like,
fair.
Weird. Yeah, so Rebecca asks where Roger had found the time to make a nice new friend. But they go to an examining room. Rebecca notes that Roger has been shot. Duh. While examining him, she's surprised he's lasted this long. Checks his temperature. It's apparently going down, been gradually going down this entire time. And Rebecca notes that he's been decomposing faster than expected and has maybe 3 or 4 more hours left. Roger is trying to, exit because he has less time than he expected. Rebecca says that in Dante Pharmaceuticals notes, she found that there might be a way to extend the resurrection for longer than 12 hours. But since she can't guarantee it, Roger wants to get back out there and get the revenge he craves. Rebecca is upset because after a decade on the streets, he still insists on working even when he's already dead. So, capitalism, am I right? So Roger wants to go check out Loudermilk's grave and have Doug check in with Loudermilk's lawyer. So they're going to split up. Randy doesn't want to go to her father's grave, but Roger insists that she has to stay where he can keep an eye on her. So, Randy heads out, followed by Doug, and then Rebecca tells Roger that she's not giving up hope. Spoiler alert, it won't matter. McNabb stops by when they're outside. He's in a nice car, apparently. It didn't look that nice to me, but, the 80s had different design sensibilities. Yeah, right. And says that, hey, Roger, you're a little early for your postmortem. And Roger said, I'm just there to reserve a body bag. And then McNabb laughs and speeds off. We see Body Doc is his license plate. And then what Roger says, I love that guy. You remarked on that when we were watching it together.
It was kind of weird. It was like a longer pause. Like, I love that guy. It's like,
yeah. It's like, but does he?
Yeah.
Well, there might be an off-screen relationship between them, but we don't have time to think about it. Because out of the graveyard, Randy directs Roger to where Loudermilk's grave is. Well, it's not a grave. It's a mausoleum.
Yeah.
And then in Doug's absence, Roger decided he needs to do all the shtick, is making a bunch of goofs throughout. But like, hey, do you think they take MasterCard? It's like, okay, dude. Like, Roger, we know you're better than this. So they get to the mausoleum. It's locked, and what's her nuts is like, oh, I don't know where the key is. What's her name? Randy. She's like, I don't have the key. How will we get in? And then Roger just shoots it. It's like, duh, he has a gun. So they go in. And once they get inside, Roger questions Randy about her actual relationship with Loudermilk because he saw the epitaph on his grave, and it said Randy. It said what? Darling husband of Loretta, but did not mention a single daughter. So that's when he's like, you're not any daughter of his. Randy comes clean and admits that she met Loudermilk when she was at the hospital for rehab, and he took her under his wing. Press X to doubt. But anyways, we see a picture of Loudermilk with Ronald Reagan, so that's how you know he's evil. She insists that Loudermilk couldn't have known what Dante was up to because he's a good dude. Except we just saw a picture with Ronald Reagan, so we know he's not.
True.
So yeah. She's still claiming he couldn't have known.
Reagan smash.
They found Reagan smash. Reagan sleepy. But they find the inside of a lampshade has a series of numbers written in blood. Roger concludes that it must be a message from Loudermilk himself, so he takes it down in his little notepad. They arrive back at Randy's house. They assume that by now, surely Doug must be there. Roger and Randy head inside and notice that the TV was left on. They think it must have been Doug. So I guess Roger goes to the kitchen to look for Doug, right? Mm-hmm. And Randy is still in the living room.
Turns on the light.
Watching the TV. And so she's watching this old timey movie, which is DOA, 1949 DOA film noir, which has a very similar plot to this, and is probably a better movie than it. No offense to this movie.
What?
So she's backing away, and when she bumps into something, she turns and finds that it's Doug, who's been hung upside down with his head in water and drowned, which is a very difficult way to drown somebody.
For sure.
But so Doug is dead off screen. What a weird way for us to lose one of our heroes.
Do you know why? Was there a reason? Was there reasoning behind it?
Yeah.
Okay.
Because bad guys. So Roger covers Doug's body, having brought him down from a suspended state. In the bathroom, a traumatized Randy is drying herself off after a shower. Doug's dead. Roger goes in, and Randy says that she didn't want to tell Roger the truth, but she had actually met Loudermilk at the hospital, not in drug rehab, but because she was there dying. And she had died and was brought back by Loudermilk. And she was told that she'd have a normal lifespan as long as she helped them. So she was spending her time helping out this like cabal of people that Loudermilk is involved with. So, no time to get more exposition from her, because guess what's happening to her hand chain?
Decomposing.
It's decomposing time. Dun, 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 dun. Oh, it's just composing.
Just composing.
Sorry, my bad. So yeah, her hand's starting to rot, and she it's a pretty gross scene. So she like stands up and like is crying as like her like hand is rotting, and her face gets droopy and is rotting, and like the forearm of her right hand just like falls off.
This is pretty wild.
Yeah, it's a pretty gruesome scene of her melting. And let me tell you, despite a guy who's about to go through the same thing, Roger does not handle it well.
Not at all.
He's like experiencing stuff.
Right.
So he's throwing a little fit. But eventually, she rots apart. Her head falls off, rolls over to the other side of the room. It's upside down and says, "Forgive me," and then melts.
You lie.
You lie. But yeah, so she says, "Forgive me." Roger, clearly troubled by this, goes back into the living room and has a bit of a panic attack. It's like, pull yourself together, dude. You'll be in that situation soon enough. He goes to the phone to try to call Rebecca, but it gets like a fake out message machine thing from her. It's like, "Hey, this is Rebecca." It's like, "Rebecca, terrible things are happening." He's like, "Leave a message." It's like, "No."
I kind of don't want to warn you now.
That's why I'm glad we don't call anyone anymore.
Right.
I have to deal with those. But he leaves the message. He's like, "Well, Doug's dead. Randy's dead." And he goes on the way to say that he wishes he'd said something, but he ran out of time. Then he gets the beep because he ran out of her, like, the length you can leave a message on a message machine. However, as he puts the headset down, he notices that the letters and the numbers might correspond. So he takes out his notepad and realizes that the numbers that Loudermilk left behind might be letters.
I feel like anyone our age with T9 would have gotten that like within seconds.
Yeah, and here's those old timey, like when I had my Motorola Razor.
Yeah.
Hell yeah. The second I saw it, I was like, what's the letters for this? And then he discovers that BODY.
Yeah.
Body. That's all we know at the time.
Right.
But we know.
Yeah.
We know.
But we saw the license plate.
We know. We're detectives too.
Right. For
Probably
sure.
better than him. So
we're alive, so
the now deteriorating Roger arrives at the morgue. He goes to confront McNabb. Pulls a gun on him. He tells McNabb that he knows why he's here. But McNabb's like, "What? You have to be more specific." So Roger explains "Hey, you killed me. You killed Doug. You didn't kill Randy, but you might as well have because you should have let her die." And then McNabb denies it all, saying that Roger's mind is going because he's deteriorating further. So he knows about the
Right. Now he's
zombism.
admitting. Now he's like,
Yeah, he's like admitting he knows, but he's like, but I'm not that one. I'm not that guy. We get a series of conclusions from Roger where he says that McNabb is taking money from rich people, but then burying them alive and then using the robbers as test subjects so you can see how much like the undeadness can go. But the ring and the watch that McNabb currently are wearing are surely from jewelry store heists. McNabb says that won't hold up in court, but Roger's like, I'm not waiting for court, and like takes out his gun. However, right as Roger is finally about to shoot him, two zombies at the direction of Thule apprehend Roger. So McNabb is angry for Thule being so late and cutting it so close. And then Thule's like, hey, how do you want me to kill this guy? Right? Is that how it goes?
something like that. Yeah.
No, there's something weirder about their
Or shut him up. He's like, shut him up or something.
Yeah, it's like, shut
And
this
he
guy up,
pistol
and they
whips
knock
him.
him in the head. It's like, anyways, how do you want this guy to be killed?
Yeah. Right. Yeah.
It's like, oh, let me show you. So they go outside of the ambulance. McNabb has a weird monologue where he says that he's always loved Roger like a son.
Yeah.
Like, we never got that from this story.
Yeah. But earlier, guys like, I love that guy. Maybe they were
It's
like,
but did he?
there's, yeah.
So he's like, he was always a dependable Boy Scout. And I'm like, but double probation? When was he a Boy Scout? So they lead Roger to the ambulance, handcuff him to the side rail. And McNabb, being as evil as he can be, says that he hopes that Roger doesn't mind sharing bed space, and then reveals that Rebecca is dead. And they're next to him.
I think she was involved.
It's like she was a nuisance. Yeah, but the movie doesn't support that. Is
I know.
The problem.
I know.
Like, you can think that all day, but like, we have nothing to prove it. In any case,
Truth.
she's still dead. So what McNabb, like Roger's obviously upset because he was clearly into her. So McNabb taunts him about how Rebecca was always a nuisance and says that the ambulance is stainless steel and soundproof, which I don't think is true of ambulances. But it doesn't matter. They shut the door and they padlock it. So Roger is going to disintegrate in 45 minutes alone with Rebecca's corpse. Oh no, what will he ever do? Don't worry. The movie continues. So Roger speaking to the dead Rebecca says, I always thought we'd end up together, but not like this. But then he's able to get down far enough to kick the parking brake out, sending the ambulance rolling down a hill, which triggers a series of car accidents.
Like catastrophic.
Like, it's horrifying.
Yeah.
What
It's
he's
like,
like, and he's like having fun, which has never been in his character before.
No.
He's like, oh yeah. Like as he like explodes. It's like, okay. Like his character may have changed.
my
during
time
this
to shine.
Yeah, finally. Treat Williams getting to live his best life. But as the ambulance causes a fiery wreck, we cut to emergency responders on scene. They're grabbing bodies, reeling them into vehicles.
This is a cool scene.
Yes. So, and then one of them, the body bag is opening itself up. Now a badly burned and half corpseified Roger emerges from one of the body bags. The EMTs are concerned. It's like, hey man, you're dead. Like, what are you up to? Like, they're scared. A nearby cop pulls a gun on him, but Roger walks up to him and takes out his badge. It's like, I'm Detective Roger Mortis. I'm going to need your gun.
Need your
the
gun.
guy's like, you're a cop? And doesn't have time to question it because Roger commandeers his gun and his motorcycle and just leaves.
Splits.
And all of them are just left there being like, how do we deal with this?
Right.
So it's a very funny scene. It was probably one of the best scenes in the movie, in my opinion. Now, meanwhile, Dante McNabb is in the chamber with the resurrection machine, talking with Arthur about, talking about Arthur to a bunch of people about his sudden demise and reviewing his accomplishments. But he says, but I don't have to tell you about his accomplishments when Arthur himself can. And then Arthur emerges.
This was weird.
Why? Because it was Vincent Price?
No, well, yeah, but no, because he led them to clues to who it was.
Yeah, I still don't understand why he left clues behind about who did it. Unless it was just in case he was betrayed. Which implies that maybe McNabb had betrayed other rich people before.
Sure.
And this is like his final test subject.
Makes sense.
This happened to be the one that worked out. So one of the men is upset and says he attended his funeral, but Loudermilk says the person in the casket is a volunteer selected by McNabb, which is really weird. It's just a series of a bunch of like speeches by Vincent Price because they only had him for like 3 days during filming this. So they're planning on demonstrating the resurrection machine, but Loudermilk is giving a long speech about all of their accomplishments as super rich people. And it's like, eventually they will all die and their empires will be going to the undeserving, or they may be split up among like warring factions. And Loudermilk says that they are rich enough to not die. And how does he phrase it? He's like, death is only for poor people.
Right.
Like, but we're rich. God wants us to live forever, or at least we can afford to buy him off.
Right.
So yeah, it's like, okay, already not liking this dude. He says that it will cost them half their fortunes to get the secret to immortality, but they then have an eternity to get it back. Not a bad deal. Roger arrives on the motorcycle and he like rolls in. And you can see him on like the security camera, but the security guard is too busy watching Vincent Price's speech. So Roger, just drives into like the foyer, hits a chain,
and launches
himself through to do a power slide into firing his gun at these guys.
So cool.
Yeah, just like offs these two.
The last part of this movie is so good.
I know. Yeah, it's like all the action they meant to have is going through. Probably because Joe Piscopo isn't here.
Well,
he's not here. So meanwhile, Loudermilk is saying where they're going to be going to a demonstration by resurrecting a man who's been dead for several hours, and like gives them an opportunity to look at him while Roger is going through the hallways, gunning down security guards, telling them, sit down. He does say sit down to the one guy.
He does.
Loudermilk then finally says that the current machine affords eternal life without any limitations, and it has all the latest refinements since their testing, which leads me to believe a theory, but I'll bring it up later. So as they start the machine up, Roger's still on the approach, gunning down another security guard. However, before he can get to the door, that security guard that he shot isn't dead because he's also a zombie.
Mm-hmm. Oh,
and he shoots the guard, the guard's shooting him, and they're just basically standing there shooting each other, just machine gunning each other, like both of them just like getting torn apart until like Roger gets him into the decompression chamber and just like tosses a grenade in and shuts the door. So that guy's gone.
Well, he does the cool guys don't look at explosions, goes to the next room and the door blows and like all the body parts.
Yeah,
fly behind.
it's so pretty funny.
Yeah.
So there you go. Enemy zombie destroyed. McNabb, then Roger walks into the room with everyone else and he's like, oh, don't stand up.
Yeah, right.
And then like McNabb tells Thule to get him. And I'm like, again, though, he's a zombie. They know this. Like, how is he going to get him? What's Thule supposed to do? Well, Thule decides to shoot him with an Uzi. Doesn't do anything. Roger shoots back. He misses a couple times. Kills a couple of rich people. No one cares. Thule.
It's like the submarine all over again.
What's that?
It's like the submarine all over again.
Ooh. I mean, yeah, though. So, Thule, after the collateral damage, Thule gets got. He gets shot up, right? One of the guards is shooting at Roger, and again, it doesn't do anything. This guard is a zombie, though. So Roger just doesn't bother shooting him, just approaches him, grabs him, and tosses him into some electrical wires and electrocutes the guy. Because he knows that electricity is a way to kill the zombies. That's why Roger's the smart one.
Yep.
Loudermilk asks Roger what he wants. And Roger's like, I'm not after you, old man. I'm after him. Points to McNabb. He says that McNabb is dead, even deader than he is. But McNabb reveals that he has a resurrected Doug as a new soldier. And he says that Doug has been brain dead too long, so now he's entirely obedient.
Right.
He will not do anything except what he's told. So, and I said, hey, Joe Piscopo has always been pretty brain dead, though. Am I right? So Doug is about to kill Roger because he said, hey, kill this guy, won't you? So Doug has got Roger in his hand, but Roger starts bringing up stuff from their old life. He's like, hey, how about how we both have the same death day? We should have a death day party together. And then he brings up the lipstick thing about how it really brings out my eyes. And apparently a homophobia joke is enough. That's the one that resurrects Doug.
Brought Doug's soul back.
Brought his soul back.
That's our way around it.
Brought Doug back. Thanks homophobia. Thanks 1980s. He drops Roger, who welcomes him into Zombieland. And then what? Like Doug is like, I don't want to hurt him. I want to hurt you, and turns to McNabb. So both of them are approaching McNabb from opposite sides of the like resurrection machine. And McNabb's shooting them with an Uzi. He's doing his absolute best. But again, not effective because these guns have never been effective against zombies.
Right.
And they get there to kill him when, McNabb says he won't let them stop him, or what? What does he say? He says that he won't let them get him. And then he like puts the Uzi into his mouth.
Blows his brains
and shoots himself. Yes. And Roger's upset. He's like, I've been cheated. And Doug's like, it's not over yet. Doug says, oh, it's over though. And Roger's like, not just yet. So they put McNabb into the resurrection machine. And Loudermilk now is just in the corner. I'm convinced that they never even met Vincent Price on set. That he was always,
it was all cut in.
Is always in another part of the, yeah.
That's interesting.
So like Vincent Price is over there like, what are you doing? And then Roger's like, I want to see what happens if you resurrect someone twice. Doug's like, I'm not interested in that. But then they overload the machine. And McNabb like first resurrects and is like, wait, don't do it. And then he explodes into like a burst of red mist. Insta-jib, like Unreal Tournament 3.
Oh, no.
Yeah. So Loudermilk is like, wait, the machine's overloading. You have to save it. And he starts saying, like, I can make you normal again. I can give you eternal life. And then they both turn around and machine gun the machine. It's like, we don't need eternal life. We're 80s cops. So they go and walk out, leaving poor Vincent Price to pick up the pieces of his eternal life machine. As they walk out, we get a call back from earlier where Roger says that they trashed their ass, and Doug said asses. So a reversal of the earlier joke.
Yeah.
They walk out into like a bright light and talk about whether or not they believe in reincarnation. And what is it? Roger's like, oh, like is like a president or a statesman. And then Doug says, I'd like to come back as the seat on a girl's bike.
Yeah.
And Roger's like, that's inspired. Like, is your brain really that far gone, Roger? And then Roger says, this could be the end of a beautiful friendship. And then that's it. 8 credits, the 80s song Dead Heat, but it's like a race against time instead of Dead Cop. So there you go.
We did it.
We did it.
Holy shit.
One question before we continue.
Sure.
Didn't they say they fixed all the problems with the machine? Does that mean that Joe Piscopo is going to live forever?
Oh, no.
No. No.
No.
Please, no. But yeah, so it's possible Doug will actually live forever and watch his friend Roger rot away.
Right.
So, anyways, that's the movie. Next up
is what?
It is the McMurder of the movie.
I think this is going to be tough.
I know.
Because typically McMurders we say have to be of non-enemies, or non-villains.
Yeah.
I think we might have to make an exception this one, right? Like how do we? Because there's only like 2.
Who are you thinking of?
I mean, I love when he hits that guy with a car.
Oh yeah, that was amazing.
That was so good. But I'm sure you're probably picking Joe Piscopo getting drowned.
No.
But I mean, there were There are a couple really great
I
ones.
didn't choose that because it wasn't graphic enough. Joe Piscopo did. I'm gonna be on a list after this.
For sure. For sure. Anywho. Who are you feeling?
I wanted to do when Randy was melting.
Yeah, that was a pretty solid.
Like, it was a devastating death. I guess it wasn't a murder.
Yeah.
But man, like, they put a lot of budget into that. Like,
For
watching
sure.
her like flesh fall apart. Like, it was a pretty devastating scene. And the fact that her last words were like, "Please forgive me." He's like, "Oh no." Like, what a trying scene. Granted, I love that dude getting mowed down by the car.
It's pretty good.
I
how
do
sudden
love
is.
it.
But there is one more that you can make a case for.
Go.
And it's the security guard where they're just shooting each other constantly. And then he like kicks him in that room and then throws a grenade in there and then leaves.
The way that they're just like firing their machine guns at each other for like 10 seconds, just like it's like, that was pretty good.
Yeah, you can make an argument for that one, but I think Randy's probably a solid choice because of the effects that went into it, and
it
that
seems like
follows
it
our
put a
guidelines
lot
as well.
And she's the only like zombie that we watch decompose
Right.
that way, like how they like actually fall apart.
Right.
So I think that was good. Like, I like that one. Granted, I liked it when McNabb got turned into a red mist.
That was pretty good.
I also liked it when two random rich people got gunned down too.
So for anyone that has noticed or heard sounds that I can't edit out, my dog is with us, and she is making this extremely fun and difficult. So, but anywho.
She's just a baby.
So we're going with Randy?
Yeah, let's go with Randy.
Solid.
Yeah, her death
Solid
was both sad and gross.
Yeah.
Two of my favorite things.
Solid. Well, now that we did that, what's next?
What is next? Perhaps it's the
Judgment categories.
What was that little gasp?
I don't know.
As listeners know, the judgment categories are where we take 5 categories and we assign a letter grade to each. It is story writing, acting, effects, music and sound design, and then cult factor. Cult factor being that little X factor that makes these movies so special.
The Piscopo effect.
Bold of you to do this when we're in the same room.
Yes.
So, for story and writing, I actually am inclined to give this a pretty good grade.
Yeah.
Because number one is it has like that like macho 80s like cop aesthetic to it.
Mm-hmm.
But it also has like this like weird element of like old noir movies, which I think is intended. But this idea that like things can just go bad for any and all reason, like and do some of like the story beats not make sense? Absolutely. Like the idea that like why did Loudermilk ask for help to begin with? Like why was he like concerned to begin with? But he also seemed like he was very weak by the time we found him. So he's probably just being manipulated by McNabb to help sell this like idea to other people. So like maybe not every plot thread comes together, but I think enough come together that it made it a interesting movie. But I think there are deep enough holes that if I were to give it a grade, I probably wouldn't go above B, but I think I'd be willing to go to B.
Yeah, I think it does enough differently, and it does it well. Like obviously there are plot holes and there are problems, but I think any movie especially in the zombie genre, that's willing to do something different and make itself stand apart, I think, deserves some credit for that. So I could do B for sure. I think it's fair.
I was just devastated to lose Rebecca like that.
Yeah, I didn't like, and maybe I don't even know where we could throw that in, but I'm not a fan of the off-screen deaths. I think that was kind of cheap.
But they resolved the one for Doug at least.
Right.
But
Well, to be fair, Roger resolved the one for Rebecca with the car crash, so that's never going to happen.
oh well,
No coming back from that one.
that's true. Yeah, she's definitely dead. But yeah, so we're gonna go with B for story and writing.
Yeah.
Sick. Next up is acting.
So I don't know where to go with this because I think there are some A performances and there are some less than D performance. Like there's some bad performances. There's some great performances. I don't think it's fair to give it a C, but that's kind of where I'm leaning. But like, I think there's a lot of star power here that could pull it to B,
Well, you have your Treat Williams, who rules.
Yep.
You have your Vincent Price, who, despite having very little screen time, he goes for it during his time.
Oh, for sure.
He's like milking that, and I loved it. He's louder milking it. One way to say.
Yeah.
You got what was the actor Darren
McGavin.
Darren McGavin. Yeah, you have Darren McGavin, who's like goes from like a bumbling side character to sudden evil genius, which is cool. Thule was fun.
Yeah.
Robert Picardo showed up for a little bit. Love to see him. I don't know. But then again, after I stack up all these great people who are in this movie, I think about Joe Piscopo and I'm like, maybe this did suck. But even in Joe Piscopo's favor, I think that he did do a decent job sometimes of showing a little bit of pathos.
Yeah.
Even if every time, like when we talked about in the Ghoulies 3 episode about how like the Ghoulies like were like joke a minute.
Right.
They inundated you with jokes. It's like one of every 4 was great, but they did them so fast you didn't even know.
Right.
This one is like 1 out of every 8 is great, and he doesn't do them fast enough.
Right.
Like I think I can count on my like one hand how many of those jokes landed over the course of 80 minutes, which isn't a lot until you think about how many jokes a minute he was going for.
I mean, he was just throwing them out there.
He was doing a bad job.
Yeah.
But you also had like Key Luke. I don't know how you say his name. Key Luke.
Yep.
Like Thule, the actor who played Thule. And he was fun when he was there. I would rather have just had the movie follow that dude around, see what he's up to. So, I don't know. The acting, Joe Piscopo hurts it, but everyone else is doing their best. And I can't undervalue how much Treat Williams does. Like he, for the most part, is the center of this movie.
Yeah.
So I could give it a B just for the treat. But if you want to go to C because Piscopo ruins it so much, I understand.
No, I think it's B because like all the other characters, like you're watching it, you're enjoying what they're doing. No one like struggled through lines. Even Treat had a couple one-liners that didn't land. When he was
Treat
off
Williams,
himself.
though.
Well, here's the thing though. So that makes me think like it's more like the writing side of stuff. Like they just wrote bad jokes sometimes rather than the delivery of the joke. Like some jokes just aren't good. Right.
I still think that Treat's delivery is better than.
Oh yeah, it's for sure is.
Piscopo's
It is, but I'm just saying, like even he had some bad one-liners that didn't hit as well as like that he probably wanted them to. But yeah, I'll go B. I think that's fair.
All right, you heard it here first, folks. Dead Heat, a B from us. The effects. Now I have thoughts on this, but I always let you go on effects first. So
here, I'll be short and sweet with this one. I loved the zombie effects, like the decaying, like aging zombie effects are awesome. They didn't go too crazy, like the scene where Roger sees himself in the mirror, and it's like super zombie, like what we would consider like a zombie. You'd see like stickers or pictures of. I think they did a great job at staying away from that. but at all points you knew when someone was a zombie on screen. Because there were very clear. There was a very clear progression on how the character would decay. So I think they did a killer job at like early stages with the makeup and like the shadowy eyes and the pale skin and stuff, and then moved it down the line into like full decomposition with like Randy. So
what I thought about even beyond that was like the way that they used like gunfire effects. So like the squib use was incredible.
yeah,
Like they'd be like doing squibs on this dude, doing squibs on these like human dudes who died.
Yep.
And then you do like another zombie who just like gets squib. Like that scene of him and the other zombie firing each other. Like
at least
there was
100.
a sense of impact to that.
Yeah.
Like that was done by like the use of squibs and the way they acted. Like they made it work.
Yeah.
And it was really impressive. Like I really think that the special effects are impressive in this. They didn't have any Herculean efforts really. But I didn't feel like there's anything that felt too artificial either.
Right.
So,
Even the lightning was good,
yeah.
which is, for this era is like, it's easy for them
like
to
when
fall
the
into that
machines
trap.
were
Yeah.
doing like the weird like lightning
It
effects.
didn't look bad at all.
It didn't look terrible. Yeah, it looked pretty decent. Like it
Yeah.
was like no one's like, oh, this will really happen. It's like no. it
Well,
won't, but-
and like if you watch the like her decomposing in the shower, it does a weird backdrop thing where you could tell they green screened.
yeah.
But like even then, it was like it was fully it was practical. They did the cut of her talking, and then it was practical again.
So they did the work. They just overlaid it differently.
I think they overlaid it on. I think the whole time it was decomposing, and they overlaid that on top of it. Because like the editor, whoever did the editing, you can tell when the screen changes, like
Sure.
the shower background changes it just like ever so slightly. They did a killer job at weaving that in. I think that, so I go with A. I like, the freaking car effects and stuff, like in the beginning, like, that like
Well, I'm not quite done yet because I want to bring up the Chinatown market.
Yeah.
The how
The animals.
the animals
Yeah,
like
that was-
operated.
That was
like
wild.
Those were a lot of puppets, and
Yeah.
it did look kind of silly, but it was also kind of like
But on
realistic
purpose,
because
though.
of that. Yeah. So like adding in that, I think it's an A for effects. I'm just gonna say it.
I agree with A. Plus the duck on the electric board thing.
The one
duck
that will
head.
replace the whoopee cushion.
Yeah. No, but
Now I want to go to B.
they turned it on.
to
And it was
F.
just like flopping around. Like, it
Oh,
was,
yeah.
like
No, it's like really interesting how
Yeah.
they made those operate.
Right.
How like little like chicken fingers in the thing would go moving.
right.
Like it's
yeah.
like it's
in the liver.
that was good. Yeah, the liver, dude.
Yeah.
The liver to
The
his
liver.
face. Right to his face.
That liver delivered.
Hey-o.
Hey.
All right, there we go. Effects are A. So what about music? I usually lean on you for this because I don't understand what sounds are.
Well, the Dead Heat song was great. Not about this movie though, right? Didn't you say it was about a race, some kind of race or something?
Yeah, it was about like a heat and a race. Yeah. But I don't know if it was made for this movie or not. I think it was made before it.
Yeah. So like, take that aside. Like, I didn't hate the music. Not memorable to me. This is one of those things where, like, if I'm not hearing like stuff all the time, it probably means it's not bad. Like, right? I'm not noticing any issues. There were no like shitty dubs or anything like that. So like that makes me lean towards C. Like the cool choice of music, the theme song is pretty cool. I'd go C or B. You know what I mean?
I'd probably have to go C.
Yeah.
I really don't think anything stood out.
Yeah, it's just average. It was just
Like Dead Heat was a good song, but they didn't play it till the end.
correct. You're right.
It wasn't like it was like the theme for the
Right.
movie. And really, like, if something doesn't stand out, then it's average. So to me, it's average.
Okay.
Like it's C.
Yep.
So yeah, I'm gonna do C for the music.
Sure.
Although some of the sound design was pretty solid.
Yeah.
Some of the goop effects.
Oh, for sure.
But again,
The
that's
guns
like-
were good too. Which
Really, I thought that like especially in the early gunfight, some of those gun effects are a little.
yeah, but them tying it in
Pow.
with the like chest moving and all the caps and stuff that went off, like they did a pretty good job I think with
No, they did a good. Yeah, they did a good work setting that up. But I lay that at the feet of effects more than I do.
Sure. No, that's fair. You're right.
So we'll do C for music.
Yep.
And now for the cult factor. That little X factor.
D.
Really?
No. I'd go A. Come on.
I'm probably gonna go A too. No, the Joe Piscopo of it all is overshadowed by the Treat Williams of it all.
Yeah.
And that works to the film's favor, I think.
Yeah, I agree.
And even though when I first watched it, I was so mad about Joe Piscopo, I couldn't even get past everything else. But now that I've like done 3 watches since then,
yeah,
I'm like, you know what? This is a fun movie. This is okay. Kind of sucks a lot of people die, but they didn't actually. They acted in other things. So, but I do see the lineage to film noir. Like I think about like the DOA movie that they reference in this exact movie. And I'm like, yeah, that makes sense. Like someone who's like got a time limit, like they engage in something beyond them. And it's like the collateral damage is crazy, but they have to put a stop to it anyway. And they do. I mean, that's how you raise stakes. I may not agree with how they raise stakes, but they raise them. So
yeah,
I'd say for cult factor, it's an A. It's worth watching. Even if Joe Piscopo's in it.
Yeah, I feel like, we'll save this for the next segment. Why don't we? So we're doing A for a cult factor.
We are.
Well, if we're doing
what's next?
We're done with the cult factor. Where do we go now?
We're going to
the D-roll.
That's me doing a horn of a boat, and the boat is the death ship.
The Horn of Gondor.
Nope, it's the death ship.
Oh, it's the death ship. Great. So cool. Sick.
I've turned a corner, and I think I love Death Ship now. Because I love how much you hate it and how much people now hate it because of us.
Yeah. Take that off of Tubi.
Right. Well, those who know the D roll know it's our little hat on a hat, our little wink nudge, zippity bop, where we decide to slot this movie into one more category, which is either cult classic, B movie, grindhouse, or trash. And hopefully we'll never do trash, but
I mean, I keep picking these bangers so shit can happen, so we'll screen movies.
If you chose trash, I would absolutely.
No, that's what I'm saying though. So like, you know what I mean? Like I don't think we would air trash.
No, I would.
Yeah. Okay. Well, the point I was making, we had a really interesting discussion after the movie was, or probably towards the end of the movie. And it's like, I feel like they picked the wrong actor to be the dead zombie cop.
Oh yeah.
Because I feel like his personality, which is just like, I don't know, just such a goober, would have fit like I don't know if he had like a bit where his hand would always fall off or like just stupid shit. Then again, I think then that would take away from the what they're trying to accomplish. Like then it would just be a fucking goofy, zombie cop movie rather than like kind of like a kind of horror noir action kind of thing going on. So I don't know, but that's that's the only point I wanted to make. So
do you think Joe Piscopo should have been the zombie?
Well, I just think his features like fit that better. Like I just feel like he would have been a better like zombie.
Well, they probably picked Treat Williams because he's still hot even as a zombie.
Well, he's also able to like
act.
Yeah. So there you go.
I'm about to be sued by Joe Piscopo's
yeah, right. He's like gonna
like,
find you.
His entire family are gonna sue me.
But on a whole, though, to me, this is a cult classic. I'm sure a lot of people could put this in the B section. I could go either way, but I think it's more cult classic. I don't know. What are you feeling?
I was leaning B after my first 2 watches, but having rewatched it recently, I think there's enough here. I think this is an interesting movie. It's a must watch, I think. Like, you need to watch it to understand, like, it's such an artifact of the 80s in so many ways. Like, the way people remember the 80s is kind of sanitized now.
Yeah, right.
So you need to see a little bit more about it. Like, there's going to be some homophobic jokes here. There's going to be some, like, vaguely racist jokes. And there's going to be some asshole who thinks he's funny and is a leading man.
Yeah.
But, you know, that's the 80s, baby. So I don't know. I think as an artifact of its era, it actually works really well.
Cool.
So, yeah, I'm definitely down for cult classic. Even if Joe Piscopo still sucks.
That's fair.
Oh, it's more than fair, sir.
Stern but fair. Well, any closing thoughts on Dead Heat before we kind of move into the next stuff?
R.I.P. Treat Williams, dude.
Yeah.
I'm bummed out he went out how he did, but, you know, he was a real one. He was in so many good things, so this is definitely not his best movie. Please watch other things with Treat Williams in them. They're certainly better. But if you got all this way and listening to this, hopefully you do.
Cool. Well, so what's next at the Dark Side Drive-In? What do we got coming down the pipeline here?
I was finally given the opportunity to show a delightful film called From Beyond.
Ooh.
It's a Stuart Gordon film.
Yeah.
Starring none other than Jeffrey Combs, Barbara Crampton, who we had from Chopping Mall, if you recall, Ken Foray from Dawn of the Dead.
Yeah.
Good movie.
Good movie. Good pizza. Papa John's.
Better ingredients. Better movie. Better John's. It's definitely on Tubi. Let's give more options. This is like my 3rd favorite Stuart Gordon movie. So
cool.
So it is on Tubi. It is on Pluto TV. It is on Canopy, Hoopla, and it says it's on Prime, but I can't confirm if that's like for rent or for real.
Yeah.
But such a good movie. Jeffrey Combs gives the performance of a lifetime in this. And Barbara Crampton obviously always rules. So
yeah, she always kills it.
Yeah. Yeah. It's also good to see Ken Foray still out there. Because you remember Ken Foray from Dawn of the Dead.
Yeah.
Yeah. They just recently actually did a reunion somewhere. Like Ken Foray, Barbara Crampton, and Jeffrey Combs.
Oh, really?
Yeah, like a Dawn of the Dead reunion.
Huh.
Would have been cool to be there, but
wasn't invited.
Wasn't here. Although, you know, we have the Night of the Creeps reunion coming up here in Monroeville.
When's that? So give us the deets on that.
It's the Living Dead weekend. I think it's in June. Let me check. I think it's the weekend of the 8th.
Okay.
So the Living Dead weekend in Monroeville. So they're doing a Night of the Creeps special. So like Tom Atkins is going to be there.
Whoa.
Yeah. And like tons of like a bunch of other actors from Night of the Creeps. And also actors from Creep Show. I heard it's going to be awesome.
Cool. We'll definitely check that out. But yeah, I think that about does it for us today. Appreciate everyone, all the new listeners, everyone that's reaching out to us. The questions on the other intermission episodes are awesome. Thank you. Yeah, so just, if you like the show, share it with a friend. We just trying to have fun with this and hope you guys are enjoying it too. But yeah, I've been Shane.
Oh, I've been Stefan.
Stay peeled.
Stay. I don't know. I need to find a catchphrase.
That's good. No, that's a good one.
Catchphrase.
Yeah, there it is.
In control.
Bye.
Wrong he was.
Come to the dark side, drive in. It's the dark side, drive in. Come to the dark side driving. It's the Dark Side Driving Movie Club. From Dynamis Media comes a horror cyclopedia, watching movies from the gates of hell, covers ripped from a blockbuster shell. Officer Bosch is the only good cop, Jugs and the stuff just can't be stopped. Things get hairy in the werewolves there, turn the corner and the prowler is there. It's the Dark Side Driving. It's the Dark Side Driving. Come to the Dark Side Driving. It's the Dark Side Driving Movie Club. Shane's the one who runs the show. He produces and keeps the flow. The Savini of the ones and twos. Only Jack Cordell has bigger shoes. Steffet does the bulk of the research. His descriptions just can't be besmirched. Lots of synopses are the top of lore. Just like Lampson, you'll be begging for more. It's the Dark Side Driving. It's the Dark Side Driving. Come to the Dark Side Driving. It's the Dark Side Driving Movie Club.
From the deepest corner of the darkest universe, two brave hosts battle through nameless hordes of ghoulish monsters most foul, all to bring you the eternal glory of the Dark Side Drive-In.
It's the Dark Side Drive-In. It's the Dark Side Drive-In. Come to the Dark Side Drive-In. It's the Dark Side Drive-In Movie Club. It's the Dark Side Drive-In. Come to the Dark Side Drive-In. It's the Dark Side Drive-In. It's the Dark Side Drive-In